Putin's money to Americans or to Europeans, to also and to the UK, so that this experience could be applied to make Putin suffer and to make him pay the price. Our job
but there's been 2 years of talk about crippling sanctions on Russia, and we see that those sanctions are very far from crippling, and the Russian economy is growing.
Well, Russian economy is not growing. Only the military is growing, while all the other sectors are doing very bad. But of course, sanctions are not efficient, and yes, regretfully, there was not enough attention to what we've suggested.
Leonid Volkov, we are now out of time. Thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Jeff Goods. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. It's Tuesday, March 12th. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, or perhaps you're listening on your CBC Listen app or tuning in to the YouTube live stream. Hello to those watching on YouTube. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for the wonderful Marcy Marcusa. Now let's say hello to our team this morning. Abby Ediami is our technical producer behind the controls. Good morning, Abby. Dylan Longhurst filling in for Corey Funkus, show director this morning. Hi, Dylan. And Brad Lillies is behind our CBC Manitoba YouTube controls this morning. And of course, Heather Wells is here as well with news. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Well, firefighters in Winnipeg say they need more staff to investigate a wave of fires that's hit the inner city this year. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis says crews have fought almost 500 fires since January, and he says there's been a significant increase in the number of vacant building fires this year compared to last. So we'll hear more about that coming up. And as Ramadan begins, the war in Gaza is weighing heavily on many Muslims in Winnipeg. The Muslim Holy Month is supposed to be a time of self-reflection and family and joy for Muslims around the world, but the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas has made this Ramadan more challenging. We're going to hear from a Muslim in Winnipeg coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Now, if you're listening and wondering, where are Marcy and Corey this morning? The answer is St. Laurent, or at least they will be in St. Laurent this morning. It's part of CBC Manitoba's Communities in Focus, where our journalists and producers, they set up community news bureaus in communities across Manitoba. The project aims to hear Manitoban stories and share them with the rest of the province. So this month, CBC Manitoba is in the Interlake, exploring places like St. Laurent, Ashern, and Ericsdale. And tomorrow, Marcy and Corey and Abby will be broadcasting live from St. Laurent. Coming up on Information Radio this morning, we've got a great show for you folks. We're going to hear, if you're a user of the social media platform TikTok, you might be wondering what is going on in the United States and why Congress is now pushing to get TikTok banned once and for all. We'll talk to a tech analyst on that story. As well, broccoli cheddar soup, pierogi soup, yam soup. Those are just a few of the soups being made and eaten at the 12th annual Stone Soup event today. That's coming up here on Information Radio.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Freedom of movement is a diminishing resource.
The dancer and performance artist Bill T. Jones has a lot to say about how movement can help you get over loss. In the 80s, at the height of the AIDS crisis, Bill interviewed terminally ill patients and incorporated their movements into dance. He'll be here to tell you why. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel-Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Haiti's political future is looking even more uncertain. The interim Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, has resigned. He is asking the people of Haiti to remain calm. He is assuring them a plan for a transitional government is in place. But right now, violent gangs control most of the capital. Anna Cunningham is following the story.
In a video address from an undisclosed location released this morning on social media, Ariel Henry, who is in Puerto Rico and unable to return to Haiti, said there was an agreement to set up a presidential transitional council that will govern. Henry became Haiti's acting leader in July 2021 when Colombian mercenaries assassinated the country's president, Juvenal Moïse. Today, Henry has had little alternative but to stand down after 10 days of increasing chaos and violence. gangs joined forces to oust him, setting police stations on fire, storming ports and prisons and laying siege to Haiti's international airport. Armed criminals now reportedly control 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, which is now under a state of emergency. One man points to a body lying in the street. He says his cousin was shot dead by police. Another man says he's been shot and pleads for international help. There is concern that ongoing unrest will soon lead to food and medical shortages. What happens next may well depend on the powerful gang leader Jimmy Cherizier, a former police officer known by his nickname Barbecue. Holding an impromptu news conference on the streets, gun in hand, he said it's up to Haitians to decide who governs the country. Anna Cunningham for CBC News, London.
The charity ship Open Arms is now sailing towards Gaza. After a long delay at the port of Cyprus, the vessel is bringing almost 200 tons of food aid to the Palestinian territory. Israel has been repeatedly accused of not doing enough to help aid reach the people of Gaza. The UN estimates a quarter of the population is on the brink of starvation. The Open Arms is the first ship to set sail along a new international sea corridor. The route is designed to get food and supplies into Gaza. The voyage from Cyprus to Gaza is expected to take about 50 hours. In India, protests are happening across the country over a controversial law. Demonstrators say the Citizenship Amendment Act discriminates against Muslims. The law gives Indian citizenship to minority religious groups who have fled Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. But Muslims are excluded. Narendra Modi's government says it is to help those facing persecution, but the opposition Congress leader says it's political and anti-Muslim.
This is the first time that into the principle of citizenship, you are finding a law being brought in that actually discriminates by excluding people of one particular faith.
Violent protests had spread across India when the law was passed in 2019. The government delayed its implementation. Opposition leaders say Modi's ruling Hindu Nationalist Party will divide the country with this legislation. India is expected to hold a general election by May. Taiwan's top security official says China is trying to normalize its military drills near the island. Taiwanese officials say the joint combat readiness patrols are meant to pressure the self-governed island. They say Beijing will likely continue with the drills, and Taiwan is preparing for the inauguration of its new president. Freelance reporter Laura Westbrook has more from Hong Kong.
Speaking to lawmakers in Taiwan's legislature, the country's national security official, Tsai Ming-yen, says China is trying to normalize military drills near Taiwan. He says Taipei remained in close discussions with international allies, but did not see any signs of war breaking out in the Taiwan Strait yet. Beijing has long claimed Taiwan and repeatedly rehearsed encircling the self-ruled island with fighter jets and Navy ships. Wei Ting-yen, an assistant professor at Franklin and Marshall College in Pennsylvania, says these gray zone tactics are becoming more frequent. Military speak for moves that fall between war and peace.
Since Pelosi's visit in 2022, we have been seeing China started using more military drills to expand its power over the Taiwan Strait. All of this represent like a new form of China to increase its pressure on Taiwan.
Chasing Ye is the director of the think tank U.S. Taiwan Watch.
And this is a tactic that China is using to create a mood of intimidation and coercion in Taiwan to try to sway public opinion and to sway elections to its favor.
Tsai warned Beijing would maintain its military and political tactics while also offering economic incentives to those who help further its goal of unifying with the island. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump are hoping to cement their party's presidential nominations tonight. 4 states are holding primaries: Washington, Mississippi, Hawaii, and Georgia. The CBC's Richard Madden is following the story from Washington. And Richard, we're not expecting any surprises tonight, but these primaries are still significant. What can you tell us?
Yeah, there's not a lot of drama, but they make the Biden-Trump rematch official. Both leaders are expected to win these primary contests tonight to secure enough delegates to become their party's presidential nominees. Now, President Joe Biden is already on a nationwide campaign blitz fresh off his State of the Union address. He's trying to draw a sharp contrast between himself and former President Donald Trump by vowing to protect social programs while blasting Trump's handling of the pandemic. Take a listen.
My predecessor failed the most basic of any duty a president owes the American people, a duty to care. I believe that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to uphold the duty to care.
Now, Trump is targeting Biden's handling of the economy, his immigration policies, and he even mocked Biden's lifelong stutter at a rally last weekend.
I'm going to bring the country together.
Now, both candidates are gearing up for a long, bitter campaign. And later this week, Biden has stops planned in key swing states, Wisconsin and Michigan. Trump is set to hold a rally in Ohio.
So we've seen some clues about what Joe Biden's campaign promises might be. He recently unveiled his budget. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Biden unveiled his proposed $7 trillion budget, which calls for tax hikes on corporations and the super wealthy, with new spending to improve social programs here at home to emergency aid for foreign allies like Ukraine. Now, this has little to no chance of passing through Congress, especially in election year, but this is considered Biden's campaign blueprint, drawing more policy contrast between himself and his rival.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. The federal government's ArriveCan app is under a new investigation, this time by the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner Harriet Soloway. Ms. Soloway will be looking into the alleged wrongdoing related to the creation of the app. She will also be following up on testimony from 2 former border agency officials. The largest newspaper in Atlantic Canada, the company that owns it, is filing for creditor protection. The Saltwire Network owns almost all of the papers in Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. As Kayla Hounsell explains, if Saltwire folds, it could leave a gaping hole in the journalism landscape.
They go back a couple of hundred years. And when I was growing up, they were the paper of record in Nova Scotia.
Stephen Kimber has been a journalist in Atlantic Canada for more than 50 years. He's talking about Halifax's Chronicle Herald, the oldest independent newspaper in Canada. But this is not just about that one paper. In 2017, its owners went on a shopping spree, buying up 24 newspapers in Atlantic Canada. Now, the private equity fund that financed those acquisitions says Saltwire owes it more than $32 million. Court documents suggest Saltwire owes millions more in unpaid taxes, that it mismanaged the business and used employees' pension funds for operations. Kimber believes it will ultimately result in the loss of all those newspapers.
There are all sorts of things that happen at city councils and school boards. Those are things that matter to people. And if they're not being reported because there's nobody out there to report them, then what happens? Is it going to be done behind closed doors?
The company also employs hundreds of people. Their union president, Willie Palov.
So we're all just kind of taking a wait-and-see approach right now.
An emergency court hearing has been set for Wednesday. Saltwire says filing for creditor protection is a strategic move to ensure the company's future. And for now, it says whether to mailboxes or inboxes, the papers will still be delivered. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on your CBC Listen app. You may be wondering, where is Marcy this morning? And you can just look to the eastern shores of Lake Manitoba. Today, Marcy and Corey Funk are exploring St. Laurent as part of CBC Manitoba's Communities in Focus. They'll be broadcasting live from the community tomorrow morning on Information Radio. But today on the show, politics and tech. Citing security concerns about data scraping, Congress in the United States is now gearing up to try and ban TikTok. That's unless the Chinese company that owns the platform divests. We'll speak with tech analyst Carmi Levy. First up on the show, broccoli, cheddar soup, pierogi soup, yam soup. Those are just a few of the soups being made to be eaten at the 12th Annual Stone Soup event today in support of food programs in schools. We'll find out how you can get involved coming up. Now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing involving a Manitoba hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after the allegations were brought up to its attention. The division would not provide further details. An RCMP spokesperson says that incident allegedly took place in Winnipeg and was reported to police in Carman on February 20th. So we'll hear more coming up. As well, it is being called a public health emergency. The overpopulation of dogs in Manitoba. 45 animal welfare groups from across the country have sent a letter to the province. They want the province to give $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs accessible to urban, rural, and remote communities. More on that in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
CBC's Heather Wells with a look at your news headlines. Abby Adeyemi joins us now. Good morning, Abby.
Good morning, Chloe. Good to have you with us this morning.
This is new. This is exciting. I'm enjoying my time here. Beautiful sunny day yesterday.
Yesterday was beautiful, warm, and I soaked in every part of the afternoon and the evening period.
As you should have. Are we going to be able to soak in some more sun rays today?
Right now, Winnipeg is kind of brisk, on just minus 1 degree under clear sky. City's looking at that. We enjoyed that mild and amazing 11 yesterday we saw, but a bit on the cool side today, but still warmer than seasonal, I'll tell you. Still, not what Winnipeg usually is like. Throughout the day, we should be anticipating increasing cloudiness in the morning, a risk of freezing drizzle later on, fog patches. Some people woke up to fog patches. So if you're like on the highway driving out of town, you will be encountering fog patches as you drive out. But they're going to be dissipating, and then you need to keep an eye out because later in the day, the winds will definitely pick up. We're expecting a high of 4 today. If we move into the night, it's going to be mainly cloudy with that continued risk of freezing drizzle. We'll see it off and on, and it's going to stay with us, especially late in the evening into the overnight, and then the fog patches will make a return. But right now, we're waking up to just 1 degree, and we're heading to a high of 4.
That sounds pretty lovely. I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. It's not 11, but I'll take it. Thank you, Abby Adeyemi, with a look at your forecast. Dylan Longhurst joins us now in studio for a look at the commute. And you're not listening to Up to Speed. I usually say that in the afternoons, but this is information radio. This is the morning. Good morning, Dylan.
Good morning, Chloe. Yes. It is a, slightly chilly day, barely below 0. But I will say, if you're going, walking out there at all sidewalks, parking lots, you're going to want to watch out for that ice. All that melting yesterday. I step out this morning earlier, and oh boy, I almost went down on the first step. So, icy conditions out there on the sidewalks, slushy, icy, all that fun stuff. Of course, that'll melt as we kind of get that sun up and those temperatures go up. But just keep an eye out for it if you're starting out early this morning today. As for traffic, not much to say right now, but we do know that Provencher and Desmurons, the intersection there, all traffic lights are flashing red all directions. So you're going to want to treat that as an always stop. Keep that in mind if that's on your normal commute this morning. And if you see anything out getting in your way on your commute, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Good morning. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen filling in for Marcy Marcusa. The 12th annual Stone Soup fundraiser gets started in just a few hours. Money raised goes to support school nutrition programs across the province. 40 restaurants will be chopping, prepping, and cooking their soups. Then other restaurant reps will taste the finished product. Maxine Meadows is the community dietitian and operations manager with the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba. Welcome, Maxine.
Hi, thanks for having me this morning.
Can you tell us the story behind Stone Soup?
For sure. Stone Soup is, it's really, our event is really about community coming together. Everyone that sort of participates in this event is really excited about the event. And it's really about community coming together and, contributing to school food programs in their area. Restaurants, people going to the restaurants to purchase the soup. It's really a fun event, and we're excited about it.
So are all these restaurants cooking together, or are they all in their separate restaurants and you can go check out each one?
So there's a few parts to this fundraiser.
Okay.
So really the main event is the Stone Soup Week. So during Stone Soup Week, it actually started yesterday, but there are quite a few restaurants that aren't open Mondays. So the event started yesterday. It's a week-long event from March 11th to 17th. And there's about 40 restaurants participating all across the province. So what happens, they're in their restaurants, they're making a signature soup, and then they're selling the soup, and for every bowl of soup sold, $1 is donated to the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba, and in turn, 100% of those proceeds are supporting Manitoba's school meal and snack programs. So the public is invited to visit our Stone Soup 2024 page. It's on our website, and you can view a list of participating restaurants and cast a vote for your favorite restaurant. Now, something that's new this year, we're having a soup tasting. So there's a media event and soup tasting that's happening today, March 12th, and it's happening between 12 and 3 o'clock today at Rudy's Eat and Drink. And so what's happening is that there's a few restaurants that are participating. I believe there's about 9 of them. And they've brought their soup so the public can have a little taste of what's going to happen all week long.
It's a soup-off. I love that.
Yeah, entry is by donation. And it's the first time we're doing this soup tasting this way. So, we're pretty excited about it.
Now, part of this soup taste test, other restaurants get to taste the soup. They are the judges. Why did you set it up like this?
Well, there won't be any specific judging at the soup tasting event.
Okay.
And so it's just restaurants coming together and being able to provide a sampling of the soup. Where the judging is happening and where the competition element comes in are when public are at these restaurants all week long. They can then hop onto our website and vote for their favorite soup. So it is the public that are voting for their favorite soup.
Now, say someone can't get out to physically enjoy a bowl of soup. How can people help or donate to school food programs in Manitoba?
So you can check out our website. We are at childnutritioncouncil.com. We're also on social media. We do have a donation page that if you're wanting to just make a donation to the cause, you can go ahead and do that. But we also have a raffle going. So if you're interested in participating, it's a 60-40 raffle. And that closes at the end of the week. So there's information on our website and social media about the raffle. And if you'd like to go online and buy a raffle ticket, there's that option too. So something for everyone.
For sure. Now, Maxine, I understand you're going to give us an update when the event starts at noon on our show, Radio Noon. So really looking forward to hearing how it's going later on today. Thank you for joining us today on Information Radio.
Thanks so much for having me.
Maxine Meadows is the Community Dietitian and Operations Manager with the Child Nutrition Council of Manitoba. The Stone Soup fundraiser is happening at Rudy's Eat and Drink. That's located at 375 Graham Avenue today between noon and 3. And as I mentioned, we'll be checking in with Maxine on Radio Noon later today to see how the soups are tasting.
Communities in Focus is back. CBC wants to get to know the communities we serve a little better, and this time we're coming to St. Laurent. I'm Emily Brass. Join me March 11th to 15th and share the stories of your community. Let's find out what St. Laurent is all about. Communities in Focus. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Speaking of communities in focus, I'm Chloe Friesen. I'm filling in for Marcy Marcusa, who is, along with Corey Funk, exploring St. Laurent today and then broadcasting live tomorrow morning from that community. So tune in tomorrow for that. TikTok. It's home to a lot of highly addictive, attention-seeking content with people sharing short videos of all sorts of things. It includes dancing and singing, pet tricks, and news and information. Well, now Congress in the United States is gearing up to ban the social media platform, citing security concerns about data scraping. And that's unless the Chinese company that owns the platform divests. For a closer look at what's going on with TikTok, we've reached Carmi Levy. He's a technology analyst and journalist. He joins us from London, Ontario. Good morning, Carmi.
Good morning, Chloe. So great to be with you.
So, for people who use TikTok to watch videos of cute puppies, they might be a little shocked here. What does this bill seek to do?
Yeah, this is an app that is about a lot more than just cute puppies, because underneath the surface, what's going on is that TikTok collects a lot more information from our phones than other apps do. And then what's worse is that it shares it with a Chinese-owned company. It's owned by a company called ByteDance. We know that Chinese companies sign deals with the Chinese government that when the government comes calling asking for data, they must comply. And even though ByteDance has denied that it's ever signed such a deal, that it has ever been asked, that it would even hand over the data if it's been asked, we know those protests really don't hold a lot of water, because essentially if you don't sign that deal with the Chinese government, you cannot do business there. So, essentially what this bill would do is it would sever that relationship. It would force the company, if it becomes law, to sell TikTok to an American-owned company, which would then conceivably store the data not in China or elsewhere, but in the U.S., and it would be controlled here. Government wouldn't be able to get their hands on it anymore. It would stop that what we call data leakage, give the Chinese government a lot less information to work with, a lot less knowledge of what's going on the devices of 170 million Americans.
Now, who in Congress is behind the renewed push to ban TikTok?
This is one of those rare instances where the answer is everybody. This is getting full bipartisan support. In fact, when the Energy and Commerce Committee voted on it last week, they approved it 50-0 and sent it on to the Senate floor, where we expect it to come up for debate and vote tomorrow. So this is really a very rare instance of both parties agreeing that the rhetoric on China has amplified in recent years, and that it makes political sense to score some points in an election year by drawing a very hard line on China, and certainly doing it in a way, with a software company forcing an ownership change that won't ignite a trade war, won't prompt China to retaliate, because it's not like there are American companies that would be subject to similar action or are doing something similar to what ByteDance is doing in the U.S. And so, score political points, relatively low risk of blowback. It's almost like a political dream come true, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on.
Would you say this is why President Joe Biden, U.S. President Joe Biden, is also supportive of this?
I think so. I mean, he has said that if it passes in Congress, that he will sign off on it, he will support it. And certainly there are a lot of reasons why he would want to come out in support of it. He's been criticized in recent months around his age, around his cognitive ability. So having some sharp things to say about an app that matters to younger voters, demographic that he traditionally has not spoken to in that way, certainly supports an alternative narrative that kind of shows him in command of a tech-forward issue, and allows him to get some sharp messaging crafted around his position on China. So it certainly makes a lot of sense for him to be part of that narrative as well, because it diverts attention away from a lot of the negativity that's been dogging him for months.
I can't imagine people are or have been quiet about this. What's the reaction of the millions of TikTok users in the United States?
It's interesting, because for much of TikTok's existence over the last decade, most users have been completely unaware of kind of those political undertones. When my kids started using it, they had no idea that it was owned by a Chinese company. They had no idea that it collected a lot of information or where that data was being stored. But that's beginning to change now. TikTok has sent out notifications to its users imploring them to contact their congresspeople, protest the bill, stop this from happening, prevent the platform from going dark. We're starting to see videos proliferate across the platform in protest of this. There are influencers who built their careers, businesses, primarily small businesses, that use the app to market their goods and services and find their audience, and they recognize that this is potentially a threat to their livelihood. And so we're seeing this not so slow awakening of, oh my God, this isn't just about, cute puppies and dances and what I had for breakfast and things like that. It really is my future. TikTok has spawned an entire sub-economy on which millions of people rely, and the prospect of it potentially going dark is now dawning on them, and they're starting to take action.
Are there any Canadians chiming in on this?
There are. We're seeing some videos come from north of the border as well, and even though we don't have similar legislation in the pipeline, doesn't mean that we won't be affected by whatever happens in the U.S. Millions of Canadians are using this app as well, and a good chunk of the audience that we reach out to on TikTok are based in the U.S. If you're a Canadian business, also primarily small business, using it to market, a lot of your market is south of the border. And if they're no longer able to use TikTok as a marketing tool, that's devastating to their livelihood. So we know that Canadians are watching, that they recognize the risk to that sub-economy, and they're starting to have their voices be heard as well. And I would suggest that if you are an avid TikTok user and you're kind of watching this going, how does it affect me? Start asking yourself, what is my plan B if, in fact, this app does go dark a few months down the road?
In terms of this attempt to take on TikTok, ultimately, could things end up going another way?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this might be much ado about nothing. What might end up happening is, first of all, it's not likely. I expect this to be passed into law, but it is all, anything can happen. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will end up in the courts, as it did last time when the Trump administration tried the same thing in 2020. Maybe it'll be shot down by the courts, which, of course, would stop it dead in its tracks. Or it could become law, and then the company could successfully sell TikTok to an American organization, which would then move the data centers and the encompassing data to American soil and American resources and kind of sever that relationship with the Chinese government. So what might end up happening here is really nothing, is that the app will continue to work as it does. Where the data is stored might shift, but for most users, that won't be much of a change at all. They won't notice it in the day-to-day.
Definitely a story to follow. Carmi, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Appreciate being here, Chloe. Thank you.
Carmi Levy is a technology analyst and journalist. He joined us from London, Ontario. And we want to hear from you. Do you use TikTok? What are your thoughts? Do you think it should be banned? Are you aware of those political undertones that Carmi was discussing about the app? We want you to share your thoughts on our listener line. That's at 204-788-3205. Again, 204-788-3205. What are your thoughts on TikTok? We're excited to hear those calls. Now, coming up on Information Radio, I almost said Up to Speed. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. You're probably more used to hearing my voice on the afternoon show, Up to Speed, so I'm making that early morning adjustment. Coming up on Information Radio, National Post parliamentary reporter Ryan Tumulty will join us to talk about what he's watching for on a pretty slow week on Parliament Hill. That's coming up on Up to Speed as well. While a local Irish club is planning a big St. Patrick's Day celebration this weekend, it's also looking for community support to keep running. Stay tuned for that and so much more here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and you might be tuning in on our CBC YouTube live stream. Hello, YouTube watchers. Your CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 1 degree right now in Winnipeg. Not quite as warm as our 11 yesterday, but we will reach a high of 4. There is a risk of freezing drizzle this morning. RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing incident involving a hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after the allegations were brought to its attention. The division would not provide any further details. Sports journalist Laura Robinson has written about abuse in hockey, and she says, generally speaking, hazing is a form of gang abuse, often involving people the victim had looked up to.
Someone, makes the team that they had hoped to make for many years. So they make that team, and now they are so excited that their dreams have come true, but that dream turns into a nightmare because of the hazing.
An RCMP spokesperson says the incident in question allegedly took place in Winnipeg and was reported to police in Carman on February 20th. The spokesperson says they are still investigating and cannot provide more information. Firefighters in Winnipeg say they need more staff to investigate a wave of fires that has hit the inner city this year. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis says crews have fought almost 500 fires since January. He says there's been a significant increase in the number of vacant building fires this year compared to last.
It is very hard to maintain the integrity of a scene. That's why you need these trained professionals to come in as the fire is going and taking pictures and doing their due diligence. So, yeah, it makes all the difference. We really need to bolster that branch.
Billis says a special sniffer dog is being trained in Virginia. The city says that dog should be on the job by late spring. Billis recommends the city quadruple its fire investigations branch to keep up with demand. As Ramadan begins, the war in Gaza is weighing heavily on many Muslims in Winnipeg. The Muslim holy month is supposed to be a time of self-reflection, family, and joy for more than 1.8 billion Muslims around the world. But the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas has made this Ramadan more challenging. Hakeem Ghulam at the Manitoba Islamic Association says one of the lessons of Ramadan is generosity, something he says needs to be practiced especially now.
If you see this kind of thing, you become emotional. You're definitely, your heart cries. You want to help them, you want to serve them, you want to assist them.
Ghulam says Ramadan is also a time to connect with community and give back where you can. Well, after days of delay, the charity ship Open Arms is sailing towards Gaza. People cheering as the vessel leaves port in Cyprus. That ship is pulling a barge loaded with 200 tons of food for the Palestinian territory. It had been hoped it would set sail over the past weekend, but authorization and technical problems kept it moored until today. The trip, which could take 2 days, is a test for the opening of the sea corridor to supply aid to Gaza. The UN says a quarter of the population in Gaza is on the brink of starvation. Haiti's unelected prime minister is bowing to pressure and has agreed to step down.
Haïti besoin la paix. Haïti besoin stabilité.
Ariel Henry saying his country needs peace and stability. Haiti is facing anarchy as government forces battle with armed groups working to overthrow the government. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. It is being called a public health emergency. The overpopulation of dogs in Manitoba. 45 animal welfare groups from across the country have sent a letter to the province. They ask the province for $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs accessible to urban, rural, and remote communities. Karina Growinski is the founding director of Feed the Fur Babies Canada.
We're out of resources. We're out of funding. We have no space. We have nowhere left to put animals, so everyone is basically at their breaking point.
Growinski says the province has not yet responded to the letter. CBC News has reached out for comment. The Winnipeg Jets found their footing again. Alex Iafallo in the second period on Sportsnet last night as the Jets bounced back from an ugly loss in Vancouver on Saturday to blank Washington 3-0. Goalie Connor Hellebuck making 23 saves for his fourth shutout of the season and the 30-win mark for the fifth time in his career. And making their debut as Jets Tyler Toffoli and Colin Miller, coach Rick Bowness says they're good fits.
There's good chemistry there already with Alex and he, so that line looked really good, and both new guys, give them credit because they hadn't skated in a few days, right, since the trade, so I'll give them both credit for coming out and giving us a really good effort.
The Winnipeg Jets now are in second place in the Central Division, and they host Nashville tomorrow. You can find more news updated throughout the morning at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
That sound of the goal horn always makes me smile, Heather.
Me too.
No
I
matter
love
what.
it.
I'm not even like an avid hockey watcher, but you hear it and you want to celebrate.
You do. You know what? And it's when you add the lights, going around, it just makes it even better.
It's a whole production, and I love it. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells with a look at your CBC local news. Heather will be back later on in the show. Abby Adeyemi joins us now.
One thing the whole province will be having in common today is freezing rain.
Ooh.
Yep.
That could make for some slippery conditions out there.
That's what the province would be having in common today, though the southern part would definitely be having fog, but every other part would see that risk of freezing drizzle throughout the day. We start off in Winnipeg. We are currently at 1 degree on the clear skies. Expect that increasing cloudiness to come in later, and then the risk of freezing drizzle I talked about will definitely be with us through the day and will get to a high of 4 degrees. Moving west to Brandon, it's chilly at -6 with mainly clear skies. Today for folks in Brandon will be sunny, then becoming a mix of sun and cloud with a west blowing wind and of course a slight chance of freezing drizzle. You see a high of 2 degrees today. Heading to the north to Thompson, it's currently -2 with light snow, a risk of freezing drizzle. You'd get to a high of 0. Further north in Churchill, we see -9 currently, cloudy with a chance of flurries later, then a risk of freezing drizzle, high of -3. Dauphin is at -3 and cloudy. The day will clear up for the Parkland region, becoming a mix of sun and cloud later on, and then we see a risk of freezing drizzle also towards the lunch break period. You get to a high of 2 degrees today. Gimli is at -2 and clear. The Interlake region is expecting increasing cloudiness later, a risk of freezing drizzle also in play, and fog patches on the highways, so you need to look out for that, but it's dissipating for the early risers. You get to a high of 4 degrees, and Steinbach is at 0 and clear. Folks in the Eastman region should be on a lookout for that increasing cloudiness and of course some fog patches dissipating this morning. You will be seeing a high of 6 degrees. And finally in Morris, it's 1 and clear for the Pembina Valley region, anticipates increasing cloudiness with the fog patches also dissipating and a light wind just blowing towards the west. We'll get to a high of 6. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 1.
Thank you so much, Abby.
You're welcome.
CBC's Abby Adeyemi with a look at your forecast. Dylan Longhurst joins us now in studio. So you're filling in for Corey Funk. I'm filling in for Marcy Marcusa. Let's hear your best Corey Funk impression.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
Okay,
No
I'm
worries.
thinking about ski trails.
Yeah, running.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with my kid. I can talk about that for hours.
You don't sleep a lot, though.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
All good things. Love Corey. Great guy.
Great impression.
Yeah.
What does the commute look like out there?
All right. Well, Provencher and Des-Murons, that intersection, we have flashing red in all directions. So you're going to want to treat that intersection as an always stop at this time. That might cause some delays if you're traveling Provencher today on your regular commute. As well, just want to mention, while we're below that freezing temperature, that sun's not out yet, those sidewalks might be slippery. Anywhere that's kind of seen a significant amount of melt probably is going to be a little bit messy later today and icy early in the morning. So keep that in mind if you're getting out there to bike or walk or you're catching a bus. It's just going to be slick. Might be not your favorite walk to this morning, but it should clear up as the day progresses. Anything you do see out there, we always love to hear it. Give us a call to our commuter line at 204-788-3093.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Dylan Longhurst with a look at your commute. I'm Chloe Friesen, as I mentioned in This Morning for Marcy Marcusa. Krista Lee Ramlaken is here now with the Business Report. Good morning, Krista Lee.
Hi, good morning, Chloe.
Now, changes are coming to popular online rental company Airbnb. What can you tell us?
Yes, so Airbnb is banning the use of indoor security cameras by the end of next month. So the platform says it's seeking to simplify its security camera policy while prioritizing privacy. And the company says the changes were made in consultation with guests, hosts, and privacy experts, and that it's going to continue to seek feedback to help ensure that these policies work for clients. Now, before, hosts were allowed to use indoor security cameras in common spaces, as long as the locations of the cameras were disclosed. Hosts can still use, though, doorbell cameras and noise monitors in common spaces, but again, they have to tell guests that they're there. Now, hidden cameras are not allowed, and though we have heard cases of guests finding them. Now, Airbnb expects the new policy to impact a small number of hosts, it says, because the majority of listings do not report having indoor security cameras. Now, privacy experts, they say that this update is a good step in the right direction. They say that they understand that owners want to ensure that their properties are secure, but that doesn't supersede a guest's right to privacy. And, not only could hosts listen or see private activities with these kinds of cameras, but there are concerns about third parties like hackers gaining access to these feeds.
Now we're going to stick with the travel business here. Chinese tourism to Canada has fallen. What's the impact of that?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, Canada had about 750,000 visitors a year from China who spent nearly $2 billion. Now it's not even close. So last year, there were around 225,000 visitors. And, during the pandemic, the Chinese government had a zero COVID policy with heavy restrictions, and many of its travel rules were only lifted early last year. And now a slowing domestic economy there could prevent Chinese consumers from returning to their old spending habits, hindering the tourism industry's efforts to recover. Of course, we know there are also geopolitical tensions. Since China eased its pandemic restrictions on outbound travel, it has not put Canada on its list of approved destinations for group tours. And the Chinese embassy has pointed to allegations of Chinese interference in Canadian elections as one of the reasons for the omission. And 4 years after the pandemic started, flight service between Canada and China is limited too. So this is because Russia has barred Ukraine's allies from flying aircraft over its airspace, which lengthens some routes into and out of China. So for more on all of this, here's Oliver Martin, who is the senior director with the travel and tourism consultancy Skift.
The travel trade in China is no longer interested in Canada. Domestic tourism has resumed tremendously in China. So a lot of those people that would have traveled to Canada are now traveling more domestically. And then, of course, our bilateral relations have definitely not improved. Tourism is very much a natural extension of soft power. And when two countries are not getting along, there's really no impetus for that business side, the travel trade, the airlines, the operators to engage in that relationship.
So, Chloe, Destination Canada, which promotes the country to overseas markets, doesn't see a recovery in Chinese visitors until 2027.
Now, Crystal Lee, you've heard there's a new interesting way that people can earn better tips. I find this fascinating. What is it?
Yes, apparently using emojis. So research published in the International Journal of Hospitality Management shows that a payment terminal's inclusion of a happy face emoji can boost tips by over 30%.
That's awesome.
Yes. So researchers tested this by including a neutral expression emoji with a 10% option, and the 15 to 25% range was presented with increasingly happier smiley faces. So the study says that these technological advances give restaurants a greater ability to alter the information that customers are getting during payment that don't actually rely on the service that you have received. So the emoji faces are nonverbal communication, and smiles are the most direct signal to positive emotions. And apparently the study says that virtual smiles are similar to facial smiles, and that they activate a region in the brain closely associated with facial perception. So researchers suggest that this biological reaction could be a reason why the inclusion of emojis has led to an increase in tipping averages.
I'm thinking about it myself, and I feel like I would feel really bad if I hit the sad face option on a tip, right?
Totally, yeah. You would feel shameful. Like, you're like, I wasn't quite sad. And I think that's the reason why people use emojis so much, like in their emails or texting, because they just want to try to communicate that emotion when it's nonverbal. So apparently these emojis have a lot more power of us than we ever knew.
All right. Crystal Lee, what's happening in markets so far this morning?
So in Europe, markets are opening higher ahead of the latest U.S. inflation report. Germany is up, the UK is up, France is down. In Hong Kong, It's leading gains in Asia. So Japan is down, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is up at 16 cents to 78.09 US per barrel. Gold is down $11.80 to $2,176.90 US per ounce, and the dollar is up 0.05 of a cent to 74.22 cents US.
Crystal Lee, I'm sending you a happy face emoji verbally here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Chloe.
That was Crystal Lee Ramlikin with the business news. Summer travel is notoriously expensive as high demand drives up prices. With Canadians grappling with a higher cost of living, spending on an expensive holiday may seem unreasonable. But there are ways to have an excellent vacation without the high price tag. They're called destination dupes. Personal finance columnist Rubina Ahmed-Haq says this way of travel can save you thousands of dollars.
Turkey instead of Saint-Tropez, Monterey Bay instead of San Francisco, Curacao instead of Saint Martin. These are just a few of the destination dupe recommendations I could find, but experts say there are many, many more, all of them saving you money compared to the original location.
So a destination dupe is definitely a new hype, which is an alternative to another popular destination that is either cheaper, less crowded, or hopefully both.
Stacey Lyons is an online travel agent based in the UK. She runs the site Look Who's Traveling. She recently shared her top destination dupes for 2024.
I think an underrated destination dupe that you may not have heard of would be swapping the Italian Riviera for Montenegro. They both have beautiful rugged cliffs, turquoise coves, and elegant beach resorts. I think that they're definitely an underrated swap for a destination dupe without the price tag of the Italian Riviera.
She says you can also increase the quality of the hotels you stay at simply by picking a destination dupe.
From my experience from Sell and Travel, you could get an all-inclusive 4 or 5 star resort in Montenegro for the same price you could get just for bed and breakfast on the Italian Riviera. So there is quite a big difference there.
Lyons says traveling to less touristy places has always been popular, but more people are considering it because of our cost of living being higher.
I think with any destination dupe or any destination in general, a lot of our friends and family, they hype up a lot of destinations. Or even you see slick marketing and then you finally reach a destination and there's been a few times where I've been awfully disappointed with what I was actually getting.
Barry Choi is a travel and money expert. He shares his expertise on his blog, Money We Have. He says anyone visiting a destination dupe has to manage their expectations. You're not going to have the exact same experience. He shares this one example for wine lovers.
If you're going for wine, yeah, obviously there's more than one region that has great wineries. So you can explore different areas. Even here outside of the Greater Toronto area, Niagara Falls, they've got a great wine region. Obviously, it's not exactly the same as Napa or Italy, but if you go in with an open mind and just enjoy the surroundings, I think there's a lot of value there more than anything else.
Choi says destination dupes are a great way to learn something new, too. He describes how he and his wife were less impressed by one expensive destination, but loved the dupe.
A decade ago, I booked a trip to Egypt because my wife and I always wanted to see the pyramids. And when we got there, it was kind of disappointing. But part of the tour included a trip to Jordan, which is basically next door. And we saw the famous Petra ruins. And that actually blew us away because we didn't know so much.
Both experts say destination dupes are also easier to navigate as they are less crowded and you see more on your holiday rather than standing in line for attractions. But add, destination dupes are just one way to save money on summer travel. Other tips include booking your flight as far out as possible. Choi says up to 11 months in advance if you can plan that far ahead. Going to places that are off season in the summer, like the Caribbean or South America. Using rewards and loyalty programs to maximize savings. Keeping your trip local by taking a road trip in your own province. These are all easy ways to save money on travel now and into the future. For CBC Radio, I'm Rubina Ahmed-Haq.
Our community.
Those who shape this place come from all walks of life.
Some of us you hear every day.
And others are working hard to make Manitoba a better place.
The movers and shakers.
The change makers. The people making a difference.
And CBC Manitoba is where you'll hear their stories.
CBC Winnipeg News at 6.
Information radio. Up to speed.
Radio News. CBC.ca/Manitoba.
Watch, listen, experience Manitoba.
The time is 6:51. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Parliament Hill is particularly quiet. Both the House of Commons and the Senate are adjourned for the week. That means party leaders and cabinet ministers can be found further afield, using the week to push their agendas across the country. Joining us now is Ryan Tumulty. He's a parliamentary reporter with the National Post. Hi, Ryan.
Good morning.
Now, tell us where the Prime Minister is expected to be this week.
Yeah, so, today we know he will be in Ottawa. He's meeting with Nathan Obed, who is the head of the National Inuit Organization. For the rest of the week, I suspect we'll see him doing things similar to what he was doing last week, is, getting outside of the Ottawa bubble, getting into local communities, getting into big cities across the country, making announcements and holding some political events as well. This is a big opportunity with the House not sitting for leaders to get out of the country and, interact more directly with Canadians. And I suspect that's what the Prime Minister will be doing.
Now, we've been hearing a lot about this in the news, but Trudeau attended a meeting remotely yesterday about the situation in Haiti. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we know that, the Prime Minister met with Caribbean leaders to talk about the situation there. He also met with a subset of his own cabinet called the Incident Response Group that sort of focuses on crises like this. We know the situation there is obviously evolving. The Prime Minister of Haiti resigned overnight. And so obviously there's a lot of attention on that. A lot of Canadians on the ground, a lot of diaspora communities here in Canada. I think all leaders are trying to find a way to restore order there and, bring some stability to Haiti.
What will the other leaders be focused on while the House isn't sitting?
Yeah, I think they're going to be doing much of the same thing as the Prime Minister, getting out in the country, meeting with voters, that sort of thing. The Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, he held a very large rally in Toronto over the weekend. He made it clear sort of his priority is going to be the carbon tax. He was talking about that at his rally. He was encouraging people to get out there and, protest the carbon tax, hold protests outside of their local constituency offices of Liberal and NDP MPs, because that tax, which, the Conservative leader has made an attack of before, is actually set to rise again on April 1st. So it's really focusing in on that. The NDP leader, he's out in BC. I suspect he'll also be getting out, going to political events, meeting with groups, things like that. So, sort of taking that opportunity because the House of Commons schedule can be quite demanding and it really keeps leaders, here, especially during a minority parliament like this.
Now, Ryan, what will you be watching for in the committees this week?
Yeah, so, one big thing that's at committee this week is the ArriveCan Contractors GC Strategies. Now, this is a small two-person firm, but they were a very large part of the ArriveCan app. They took about a third of the $60 million price tag, according to the Auditor General. And I think there's been a lot of questions about, why such a small firm had such a large bill and what their work was involved in this, because a lot of their work was also done on a sole source basis. So these contractors have testified before back in the fall. Then they were summoned back, and initially they declined to come. So the House of Commons actually had to go through a special procedure that makes it clear that they do have to attend, and if they don't, they will be put in custody by the Sergeant at Arms. Not something you see regularly up here. And so they are expected to attend. We didn't have to get the Sergeant at Arms involved, but I think a lot of people are going to have questions for them about their involvement in this app and how it spiraled so much out of control.
So this week is quiet on Parliament Hill. Moving to next week, what will you be watching for?
Yeah, next week MPs return, but I think, the whole lead up now is towards the budget. The finance minister announced that would be coming April 16th. That really becomes the focus of everything in Ottawa for a while now because, lobby groups and interest groups are going to be pushing for inclusion for their priorities. Even cabinet members are going to be pushing Minister Freeland to get their, wish list included in the final budget. So a lot of pressure there. And then also later this month, we're going to have more hearings in the foreign interference inquiry. And these hearings, I suspect, are going to be the ones that really, Canadians pay a lot of attention to. We don't have a full witness list yet, but I suspect we're going to see, the Prime Minister testify, other cabinet ministers, CSIS officials, things like that. Some of the people who can talk about exactly what happened in the 2019 and 2021 elections.
Lots to watch for. Thank you for joining us this morning, Ryan.
All right, thank you.
Ryan Tumulty is a parliamentary reporter with the National Post. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. CBC's Heather Wells joins us now for a look at headlines.
Good morning. Well, RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing involving a Manitoba hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after the allegations were brought to its attention. The division would not provide further details. RCMP confirmed they are investigating, so we'll hear more. And as Ramadan begins, the war in Gaza weighs heavily on many Muslims in Winnipeg. The Muslim Holy Month is supposed to be a time of self-reflection, family, and joy for more than 1.8 billion Muslims around the world, but the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas has made this Ramadan more challenging. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
CBC's Heather Wells with a look at your headlines. Currently sitting at -1 at the airport. Clear, but we're going to see increasing cloudiness this morning. A risk of freezing drizzle later this morning. If you've seen some fog patches, those will dissipate later on. High today of +4. And Dylan Longhurst joins me in studio now. Dylan, that freezing rain could cause some commuter issues later on this morning, but what are we seeing right now?
Yeah, well, I just want to give an update on Provencher and Des Mureaux. Those lights have been restored at the intersection, so there are no issues at this time. As well, we just got a call from Dan on a bike who wanted to mention, sidewalks and bike lanes this morning are a bit rough due to the combination of potholes, snow melt, and all that little ice that's cropping up due to this melt and freezing temperatures here. So might be a bit of an issue if you're walking on the sidewalks or biking on the bike lanes. Keep that in mind for your commute as well. Side streets, bit of a mess depending on where you are. Keep that in mind. See anything out there? 204-788-3093.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Still lots to come on Information Radio this morning. As you heard in the headlines, RCMP investigating hazing allegations involving a hockey team in southern Manitoba. Very few details have been released, but at 7:50 we'll talk to a sports journalist about hazing in hockey culture and what needs to be done to protect players. That and so much more still to come on Information Radio. I'm Chloe Friesen in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. We'll be back just after the World Report.
Today on The Current. Our memories are such a huge part of who we are as people, but the human memory is also fickle, and what we remember happening may not be what actually occurred. What new research shows about how memory works on The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Haiti's political future is looking even more uncertain. The interim prime minister, Ariel Henry, has resigned. He is asking the people of Haiti to remain calm. He's assuring them a plan for a transitional government is in place. But right now, violent gangs control most of the capital. Anna Cunningham is following the story.
In a video address from an undisclosed location released this morning on social media, Ariel Henry, who is in Puerto Rico and unable to return to Haiti, said there was an agreement to set up a presidential transitional council that will govern. Henry became Haiti's acting leader in July 2021 when Colombian mercenaries assassinated the country's president, Juvenal Moïse. Today, Henry has had little alternative but to stand down after 10 days of increasing chaos and violence. Gangs joined forces to oust him, setting police stations on fire, storming ports and prisons and laying siege to Haiti's international airport. Armed criminals now reportedly control 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, which is now under a state of emergency. One man points to a body lying in the street. He says his cousin was shot dead by police. Another man says he's been shot and pleads for international help. There is concern that ongoing unrest will soon lead to food and medical shortages. What happens next may well depend on the powerful gang leader Jimmy Cherizier, a former police officer known by his nickname Barbecue. Holding an impromptu news conference on the streets, gun in hand, he said it's up to Haitians to decide who governs the country. Anna Cunningham for CBC News, London.
The first ship to sail the international sea corridor from Cyprus to Gaza is now en route. It is towing a barge full of food for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who are on the brink of starvation. Freelance reporter Rebecca Collard has the details.
The ship set sail from the port city of Larnaca in Cyprus this morning after days of delays. It's towing some 200 tons of aid bound for Gaza. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
The situation on the ground is more dramatic than ever, and it has reached a tipping point. We have all seen the reports of children dying of starvation. This cannot be.
The barge includes flour, rice, and tinned proteins like tuna and will sail more than 300 kilometers to Gaza. It could take 2 days to arrive, and there is still a lack of clarity on how the aid will be brought ashore and delivered to those in need. Gaza has been under an Israeli-imposed sea blockade since 2007. Israel agreed to this shipment after checking the aid in the port in Cyprus. It says it is doing what it can to bring aid into the Strip. But the UN and aid groups have accused Israel of blocking simpler access routes for aid deliveries. Arvind Das is with the International Rescue Committee.
There are hundreds of trucks at Rafah that are lined up and been waiting for days. The obvious answer would be ease that up, let the trucks come in, ensure that there is safe
Von der
access.
Leyen said today all routes must be opened to get food into Gaza.
The people of Gaza need an immediate humanitarian pause that would lead to a sustainable ceasefire.
But weeks of talks and mediation have so far failed to bring even a temporary pause in the fighting. Rebecca Collard for CBC News, Berlin.
India has enacted a controversial citizenship law. Many people there are calling it discriminatory. The law would give Indian citizenship to several religious minority groups who fled other countries, but it excludes Muslims. Many are questioning the timing of its implementation. The country is preparing for an election. The CBC's Asia correspondent, Salima Shivji, has more from Mumbai.
As India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi met his party's election committee, planning their campaign for a vote that has to happen by May, his government moved to fully implement a controversial law. The Citizenship Amendment Act gives Indian nationality to Hindus, Parsis, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, and Christians who fled several Muslim-majority countries before December 2014. But it does not give that right to Muslims. There were cheers and celebrations from some. We're so happy. Thanks to the Modi government, our prayers have been answered, says Madan Lal, a Hindu who came to India from Pakistan 14 years ago. But there were also protests in Assam, a northeastern state bordering Bangladesh, where the citizenship law has been particularly contentious. In 2019, when it was first introduced, deadly protests broke out across the country, triggering the worst riots to hit the capital, Delhi, in decades. More than 100 people reportedly died, and the implementation of the law was paused, even though the Modi government denies the legislation is anti-Muslim. Opposition parties are questioning the timing of this move.
Why suddenly this?
D. Raja is the General Secretary of the Communist Party of India.
Nothing but to divide the people, create tension among the people at the time of elections.
Security has been increased across the country, with the contentious law now in force. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
The federal government's ArriveCan app is being investigated again, this time by the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner. Harriet Soloway will be looking into alleged wrongdoing related to the creation of the app. She will also be following up on testimony from two former border agency officials. They told a parliamentary committee they were being used as scapegoats after they criticized their superiors. Australian officials have released the country's first ever climate risk assessment. It looks at how climate change is affecting everything from food supply to the country's infrastructure and economy. Senator Jenny McAllister is Australia's Assistant Minister for Climate Change.
The quality of our infrastructure and our buildings, the sustainability and reliability of our food systems, our access to water, a range of areas where we need to start thinking about what the long-term implications of climate change will be for all of us.
Australia is the world's driest continent. Politicians now say it is time to adjust to rising temperatures and prepare for the impacts of climate change. And Cheryl Kawaja has our story about the Winter Games happening in Alaska. Yukon athlete Gallagher DeAmbro is celebrating a bronze medal win in the snowshoe biathlon, but he never would have had the chance to compete without some help from a friend.
One of the uniquely northern sports at the Arctic Winter Games is snowshoe biathlon on the traditional large wooden frames and mucklucks. Gallagher DeBramo is a competitor from the Yukon, but how he got here is a story of sacrifice, camaraderie, and enduring friendship. Back in Whitehorse, his buddy Chase O'Brien is passionate about the sport.
I'm whole heart with it for sure.
O'Brien has already been to the Arctic Winter Games previously.
And it was just like so much fun. You only live once. I figured like it was just an experience I wouldn't want to miss out on.
He won the qualifier to go this year, but he stepped aside to let the alternate have a turn, his friend Gallagher DeBramo.
Our friendship was more important than the race, so I had already gone once, so I figured it was like kind of the right thing to do.
At the biathlon range outside Anchorage, Alaska, coach Nick Marnick preps Gallagher for his first event.
And you know what to do. Trust yourself. Yeah.
Marnick says he's proud of every one of his athletes, but Chase O'Brien's humble move to step aside is golden.
I couldn't have been more proud of him.
And this experience at a multi-sport circumpolar games with 2,000 other participants isn't an experience DeBramo will ever forget.
I'm really happy to be here. It's quite fun.
Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Anchorage, Alaska.
Singer-songwriter Eric Carmen has died. His wife, Amy, made the announcement on his website last night. She wrote that Carmen died in his sleep over the weekend. His song Hungry Eyes was made famous in the film Dirty Dancing. Carmen was the frontman for the pop band Raspberries, but also had lots of success as a solo artist. Eric Carmen was 74 years old. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
hockey team in Manitoba. We'll speak with a sports journalist about why hazing still exists and what needs to change. As well, St. Patrick's Day is this week. And are you looking for something to do? We'll tell you about a weekend shindig that will get you feeling Celtic and could also help out a struggling cultural club. That and so much more coming up on Information Radio. First, we have headlines with CBC's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, we're going to take you to prayers held last night at Winnipeg's Grand Mosque. As Ramadan begins, the war in Gaza is weighing heavily on many Muslims in Winnipeg. We'll hear more about that. And it is being called a public health emergency. The overpopulation of dogs in Manitoba. 45 animal welfare groups from across the country have sent a letter to the province asking for $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs that would be accessible to urban, rural, and remote communities. We're going to hear more coming up at 7:30.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells with a look at your CBC News headlines. Abby Adeyemi is our show technician and looking at the weather this morning. Is it true, Abby, we're going to see some freezing rain?
Yes, freezing rain. Actually, in the last hour, we just dropped down to zero again.
Oh, no.
From 2 to 1, now we're on zero. It's
all
brisk.
Right.
It's clear, though. It's clear in the city after that mild 11 we saw yesterday. A little bit on the cool side, though. That's for today, but still warmer than seasonal. Throughout the day, you should anticipate increasing cloudiness this morning with a brisk freezing rain coming on later. Just a bit of that. And then we'll see fog patches this morning. For those driving outside the perimeter and open areas, you should be seeing some fog patches dissipating as we speak. So you need to keep an eye out for that. And also, as you cruise through towards your day, you'd notice the wind will pick up a bit. We'll be seeing a high of 4. And if we move into the night period just a bit, it's going to be mainly cloudy with that continued freezing drizzle we see starting this morning, especially late into the evening and overnight. And then the fog patches will make a return near midnight. We're heading for a high of 4 today, but currently we are now at 0.
Thank you so much, Abby.
You're welcome.
And we should say hello to the whole team this morning. Brad Lillies is behind all of the controls that have to do with our CBC Manitoba YouTube live stream. Dylan Longhurst joins us now in studio. Dylan, let's wave to the YouTube folks.
Ooh, okay.
If you're listening on the radio, Dylan and I are waving. It's very exciting. Dylan, what are things looking like on the commute this morning?
All right. Well, actually pretty clear for drivers today. Haven't heard much getting in the way on the roads. As for cyclists, or if you're commuting by walking or walking to a bus stop, you're going to be noticing some slippery conditions out there on the sidewalks. That's just because of all of that snow melt we got with those nice sunny conditions yesterday. That's all melted, refroze overnight. So if you're walking or biking out there, you'll just want to keep that in mind on those snowier bike paths or side streets. Might affect your drive as well a little bit. But yeah, right now, just a little bit slippery. I'd imagine that is going to become pretty slushy later on today as that sun comes out again. But for the time being, watch out for that ice. If you see anything out there, do give us a call on our commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or as we mentioned, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube live stream. St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger Winnipeg celebration than what's happening at the Irish Club this weekend. That's because the Irish Association of Manitoba is having a party all weekend long. But after the partying is over, they're hoping you'll continue to support them. The club says it's facing some financial challenges this year. Siobhan Keeley is the events manager for the Irish Association of Manitoba and joins us in studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, how excited are you for St. Patrick's Day this year?
I'm pretty excited. It's going to be a really fun weekend down at the club, and we've got lots going on, and it's always wonderful to just have that club full of people having a good time.
I know that St. Patrick's Day comes and it goes. People wear green. There's shamrocks everywhere. But what is the historical significance of this celebration?
Well, St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland, and he is credited with bringing Christianity into the country. He was actually kidnapped by pirates and was held as a slave in Ireland and then escaped to a monastery where he became a Christian and decided to spread the good word.
Do we know where the green comes from?
We don't. He actually wore blue. He didn't even wear green. I know.
We're doing it all wrong. That's fascinating. Tell us more about the events that are happening this weekend.
So Thursday night, we have our traditional musicians. Friday night, we have the band Celtic Way. Saturday morning, we have a parade that starts at the club, winds its way through the neighborhood, comes back for a full Irish breakfast. Saturday night, we have the band Encore. And Sunday, throughout the whole day, we have various musicians and the McDonald School of Irish Dance.
So it is the morning, and you said Irish breakfast. What is Irish breakfast? Because I'm already, the word makes me hungry.
So an Irish breakfast is referred to as a full Irish, and it is very filling. It is sausages, eggs, black pudding, sometimes beans, and in honor of our Vice President, Joanne, soda farls.
I'm going to need to know what that is.
We almost need Joanne. It's a type of bread.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm happy that Joanne gets that. That's very exciting. What are you most excited about? What do you look forward to on the weekends?
On the weekends in general?
Sorry,
or
on the
St.
weekend.
Patrick's
I
Day?
added an S. I mean, we could ask both questions, but on St. Patrick's Day.
For this particular weekend, I am excited to have people down at the club. Again, it's a great venue and it's wonderful to have people in it. My favorite part of our celebrations is the dancers.
Can you describe that type of dance? What can people expect if they come and see the dancers?
You know, the dancers that represent the club are honestly incredibly talented, and there's just something about when they are up and dancing. It actually gets me quite teary to watch them. There's just something about that part of storytelling from Ireland that truly fills my heart. I love watching them.
Oh, St. Patrick's Day, it's a big weekend for your association. It only happens once a year. What are some of the challenges that your organization has been facing year-round?
So, like all other not-for-profits, COVID has, of course, done what it's done, and we're still struggling to dig our way out of that. And most importantly is we have a beautiful little theater right beside our pub, like a live performance theater space. And the roof in there is leaking and has started to cause some significant damage. And we've been quoted approximately $60,000 just to fix the roof, never mind the damage that's already happening within the theater. And the club really just does not have that money.
Now, this is a theater that other groups use outside of the association. What are you hearing from those groups who?
That's correct.
Who
so
wanna
even
use it?
from within our association, the Tower players have not been able to perform. And for instance, I have a friend from Dark Horse Theatre Company who he's been wanting to perform in there again. He's already done a show in there, loves the venue, and we've had to turn him away at this point because we just don't know when that roof is going to get fixed, and I don't want him to suddenly be without a venue when time comes.
And it's a Folklorama space too, I believe?
No, we no longer hold Folklorama in the club. It's not quite big enough.
Gotcha. Okay. What would it mean, though, for the Irish community in Manitoba if this club was lost?
It would be significant. The club has been around for 52 years. My parents' generation were the ones who started it. And a lot of that generation has passed on. And so we hold this club in honor of them. And we, it is the place to come and experience Irish culture. And I am extremely fond of Irish culture, as most people are, whether they're Irish or not. There's so much going on for us between storytelling and plays and music and dance. So it would be quite a blow to the community if it suddenly disappeared.
And breakfast.
Soda farls.
So what kind of support are you asking from Manitobans right now?
We have currently started a GoFundMe, which you can find via our website. And, the big wish that I'm going to put out there is if there's a roofing company that would like to significantly help us out. And we don't have the finances. So if we could make arrangements with a roofing company, if a roofing company would be willing to donate some of their time, some of their materials, I don't know what that looks like, but that's the big wish.
Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and happy almost St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much, Chloe. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Siobhan Keeley is the Irish Association of Manitoba's events manager. Their events are happening this weekend at the Irish Club in Winnipeg. For more, you can visit their website at irishassociationofmanitoba.ca.
I was going over Cork and Kerry mountains. Came on Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol, I then produced my rapier. Said stand and deliver, for I am the bold deceiver. Sharing on back for the daddy-o, back for the daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar. Counted out his money and it made a pretty penny. Put it in my pocket and I took it home to Jenny. She sighed and she swore that she never would deceive me. The devil take the woman, for she lies so goddamn easy. Must you ring 'em, do 'em now. Back for the daddy-o, back for the daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar. I went to me chamber to take a little slumber. I dreamt of golden jewels and it really is no wonder. Jenny took me charges and she filled them up with water. Said for Captain Farrell to be ready for the slaughter. But she'll ring 'em, do 'em da. Whack for the daddy-o, whack for the daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar.
The Dust Rhinos with Whiskey in the Jar. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Marcy Marcusa this morning on Information Radio. Thanks for tuning in. We're sitting at 0 at the Forks this morning here in Winnipeg. And we might get up to a high of +4 today with a wind chill. Could get us to -6 this morning, but we're still sitting at that 0, so ignore that. Increasing cloudiness this morning. We could see a risk of freezing drizzle later this morning, and those fog patches, if you have noticed them, will be dissipating later on in the day. Still to come on Information Radio. Young aspiring filmmakers have been producing mini documentaries as part of a very special collaboration between CBC Manitoba and Sisler High School. You might have heard some here on the show in the past. We'll hear from two of the teachers who help students create those projects later on Information Radio. But first, it's time for sports with Paul McGowan. And Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Chloe.
Good morning. Okay, let's start with the Jets. They responded to that call out from Coach Rick Bowness on Saturday.
Did they ever? Bowness calling Saturday's game the worst he's seen the team play.
Ooh.
And they go out last night and put together a 3-0 shutout victory over the Capitals. It's funny, despite all of the hand-wringing over Saturday's loss, the Jets have 11 wins in their last 15. They've won 16 of their last 20 at home. And I can imagine a world where Rick Bowness's comments were viewed as overly tough by Jets players. But instead, Kyle Connor said they used Saturday as a lesson.
Hey, we're going to have bad nights here. It's not perfect all the time. That's on us as a players. At the end of the day, you can't focus too much on that. Yeah, you can learn from it, but at the same time, we're going to lose games in the playoffs. It's going to happen. Everything we do now is preparing for that. So how we respond, how we regroup, and the biggest thing, we stuck together and we had each other's backs.
The Jets will look to build on that shutout win tomorrow night. They are back on home ice against Nashville.
Paul, let's talk Raptors. They were dealing with several key injuries last night.
Last night, it would have been tough against any opponent. A quick list of Raptors who were unavailable last night. Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr., Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, Chris Boucher. So actually not a quick list. The Raps down most of their starting five. And they were in that position, too, against the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. Now, the talk before the game was how big of a blowout we would see. But the Raptors kept it close. The Nuggets win 125-119, and they end up needing a big fourth quarter to do it. RJ Barrett, who himself was questionable last night because of illness, said he was proud of the team's effort.
We just play hard. We play hard. We fight every possession. Took the defending champs, right to the end. Obviously, they have some great players over there. They played a really good game, but we gave them one hell of a fight.
The Raptors will hope to have at least a couple of bodies back by tomorrow night. They are in Detroit to face the Pistons.
Now, finally, Paul, you have some tennis drama from Southern California.
Yeah, we are into the third round down at Indian Wells. And for some context, this tournament is a big deal. It is a crowded field. And as with any tennis event, there are qualifiers in that field. So people who have to win their way into the draw. But in addition to those qualifiers, you have what are called lucky losers. Players who lose in the qualifying draw, but then get to play because somebody is ill or injured or whatever. And so one of these lucky losers, this Italian kid, Luca Nardi, was ranked 153rd in the world, and he ends up playing world number one Novak Djokovic yesterday. You can maybe guess where this is going.
Drama.
Here is 20-year-old, here is Luca Nardi after beating Novak Djokovic pretty handily yesterday.
No one could imagine it. I was like a third lucky loser, so even that, it was something that surprised me. After the match, my coaches told me, look, everyone was cheering for you, and incredible, because against Djokovic, he's the best player ever, so I think that I will keep this moment for me and for the rest of my life, for sure.
Such a fun moment for him. And look, history tells us that after this monumental upset, Nardi probably gets bumped in the next round. These upsets don't often translate into tournament victories, but hard not to enjoy the moment when you are ranked 153rd and you take down the world number one.
Lucky loser is a phrase I've never heard, but I want to work into my everyday lingo. That is an awesome phrase.
Yeah, it's good, right?
Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chloe.
That was Paul McGowan in for Scott Regier with the Sports Report.
Ashern, Ericsdale, we want to get to know you a little better. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to your communities March 18th to 22nd. Come and share the stories of your home with me. I'm Bryce Hoy. Let's get to know each other. Communities in Focus. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Nellie Furtado, and I'm bringing the party to the 2024 Juno Awards. Join me in Halifax for Canada's biggest night in music with performances by my friends, The Beaches, Maestro Fresh West, Charlotte Cardin, and me. It's a party you're never going to forget. Promise, you know?
Don't miss the 2024 Juno Awards live from Halifax. Sunday, March 24th at 8 Eastern on CBC and CBC Gem.
Coming up later on Information Radio, we'll meet a pair of educators from Winnipeg Sisler High School. They're here to tell us about a very special classroom where they help students become filmmakers. That's coming up on Information Radio just after your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is clear. 0 right now in Winnipeg. We're going to see some clouds move in today. There is a risk of freezing drizzle and a little cooler than yesterday, but still warmer than seasonal. Today's high is 4. The Muslim Holy Month is taking on a new meaning this year. Prayers at Winnipeg's Grand Mosque last night. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has left Muslims with heavy hearts as we begin the month of Ramadan. The region is running out of food, and people and children are starving. All of this as the war between Israel and Hamas shows no signs of letting up. Hakeem Ghulam is on the board of the Manitoba Islamic Association.
When you're hungry and thirsty, you can agitate it, but that's the time Ramadan teach you that you have to be patient. You have to show empathy and compassion with the people around you. And not only Muslim, but all human being. You have to help the people, whatever the capacity you get a chance, whenever and wherever you get that chance.
Ghulam is part of a group hosting a Break the Fast community gathering this Saturday, hoping to bring Muslims and non-Muslims together. RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing involving a Manitoba hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after allegations were brought to its attention. The division would not provide further details. An RCMP spokesperson says the incident allegedly took place in Winnipeg and was reported to police in Carman on February 20th. Laura Robinson is a sports journalist who has written about abuse in hockey. She says generally, hazing used to be very common, but has gone underground in recent years.
All teams have banned it at every level, but I do believe that it still can take place in secret and underground. So we don't really know how common it is now because all sports organizations have banned hazing.
Robinson says hazing is a form of gang abuse and can turn hockey dreams into nightmares. You can hear more on this story in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. The head of the Firefighters Union agrees Winnipeg's Fire Investigations Branch needs a big boost in resources. Yesterday, a longtime community activist called on the city to reestablish the arson strike force. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis has never seen so many fires in his 3 decades on the job. He says crews have fought almost 500 fires since January. Billis says the number of vacant building fires is soaring. He says a special sniffer dog is being trained for fire investigations in Virginia and should be on the job by late spring.
It is not adequate. We probably could have a dog on every shift and probably double our staff in our fire investigations, given the number and frequency of fires of significance our member space.
Billis says right now City Council is considering cuts to the fire department, which would affect its investigations branch. Haiti's unelected prime minister is bowing to pressure and has agreed to step down.
Haïti besoin la paix. Haïti besoin stabilité.
Ariel Henry says his country needs peace and stability. Haiti is facing anarchy as government forces battle with armed groups working to overthrow the government. Henry says he will step down once a transition council and temporary replacement have been appointed. The move comes as Canada's been meeting with Caribbean leaders in Jamaica to address the crisis. Russia says a military transport plane has crashed. 15 people are reported to have been on board. No word yet on any survivors. Officials say it went down shortly after takeoff from a military base in western Russia, and they're blaming it on an engine fire. In the past, Ukrainian drones have hit some military air bases deep inside Russia. You can hear more national and international news on World Report at 8. The Manitoba government is being called on to intervene as dog overpopulations become a crisis in this province. 45 animal welfare groups across the country have written the province. They want $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs that would be accessible to urban, rural, and remote communities. Katie Powell is president of Save a Dog Network. She says this letter was a long time coming.
we are tired, we are broke, we wonder, it's like emptying the ocean with a spoon, and then we start to wonder, does anybody hear us?
Powell says the letter was also sparked by more incidents of dog attacks and culls in recent months. The Winnipeg Jets are back on track. Kyle Connor in the third period on Sportsnet as the Jets beat the Washington Capitals 3-0 last night. The win comes after that grim loss in Vancouver on the weekend. Jets coach Rick Bowness saw a solid effort from his team.
We defended a lot better. We spent less time in our zone. We spent a lot of time in their zone. We still like to create a little more offense, but the big thing was that we defended much better. We stayed above them. We slowed them down a little bit when we could. We didn't let them dictate the pace of the game like we did in Vancouver.
The Jets now are in second place in the Central Division, and they host Nashville tomorrow. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells with a look at your news. Abby Adiemi now joins us for a look at the weather.
If you look out the window, it's just clear.
Our blinds are down.
I know your blinds. I wish you could
but
just
I'm imagining it, and it's so clear.
It's clear, but we are at a brisk 0. Just take that. However, some increasing cloudiness will crawl in throughout the day, so you should expect that. We'll be seeing a high of 4 degrees in the city today. If we move west to Brandon now, Brandon is mainly clear, also with a temperature at -7. Today in the Westman region, expect sunny skies. Then it's going to be transitioning into a mix of sun and cloud. With that light west wind, it's going to be accompanying the high of 2 degrees that you will see. Now we head to the north to Thompson. It's currently partly cloudy up. The temperature is at -3 degrees. You should anticipate light snow and a risk of freezing drizzle, reaching a high of 0 today. Further north in Churchill, it's cloudy with the temperature at -9. The forecast includes cloudy conditions with a chance of flurries and a risk of freezing a drizzle. The highs will reach -3 for Churchill today. In Dauphin, it's currently cloudy with a temperature sitting at -3 degrees. The Parkland region will be seeing a mix of sun and cloud with a risk of freezing drizzle this morning, and then a high of 2 degrees. If we head down to Gimli, it's currently clear there. The temperature is at -2. For folks in the Interlake region, anticipate increasing cloudiness, a risk of freezing drizzle, and then dissipating fog patches. The highs will reach 4 degrees. Heading south to Steinbach, it's clear with the temperature of -1. Keep an eye out for the clouds crawling in later, and of course that fog patches dissipating. The high will reach 6 degrees. And lastly, Maurice, it is clear you are at -1. The Pembina Valley region, expect increasing cloudiness with dissipating fog patches and a light wind blowing west. You will see a high of 6 today.
Thank you so much, Abby.
You're welcome.
CBC's Abby Adiemi behind the boards today on Information Radio. And he mentioned Pembina Valley, so I have to at least once. Hi, Mom. Thanks for listening. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Dylan Longhurst filling in for Corey Funk. You've been... Oh.
Hi, Chloe's mom.
Now your mic's on.
There
Hi,
we
Chloe's
go.
mom. Dylan, you've been looking at the commute. What are things like out there?
All right. Well, it's actually not been a too bad morning. For driving, haven't heard much on the roads getting in your way, although I will mention pothole season is truly upon us. I know they've kind of been cropping up most of the winter due to all these highs and lows we've been seeing. But yeah, hearing lots about potholes getting in people's ways, especially with these wet conditions, can kind of hide those on certain roads. So keep that in mind. As you're traveling along today. Not seeing too much getting in people's ways. Otherwise, if you're walking around right now, those sidewalks and side streets can be pretty icy. So use caution. Proper footwear might be in order. And I would imagine later today we're going to be seeing some of those wet, slushy conditions as that sun comes out in full and starts to melt that remaining ice and slush. So keep that in mind if you're walking around, biking around today. That might be a bit difficult for you. But on the roads, if you see anything getting in your way, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Dylan Longhurst with a look at your commute. Now, over the past several months, we've brought you some great stories produced by a group of budding filmmakers in Winnipeg. The students, all part of the Sisler Create program. They created short documentaries about some very unique people in our community. Here are some of these projects.
suddenly I couldn't touch my binder, and there was something wrong with my binder, and every time that I went and I grabbed my binder, I was getting in and out of the shower. I think I took 3 or 4 showers in about 2 hours. And I was just, every time I would get out, I would get dressed, and then I would I would try to get back to my work and have the same panic attack over and over again.
Doors would close and opening, lights would turn on and off, and we would hear footsteps outside our bedrooms, my sister and I. I knew something was weird, and there was a name for it, or, ghosts or paranormal. Growing up in a haunted house, for sure, played a big part on me wanting to be an investigator.
You heard Kalanda Stroot and Big Daddy Taz there. They're just a handful of people we have met over the past few months as part of a collaboration between CBC Manitoba and young students in the post-high school filmmaking program at Sisler Create. The collaboration is wrapping up for another year, but the program is open for applications right now. And here to tell us more about this program are the 2 Sisler instructors who oversee the student filmmakers, Jonathan Dick Lyons and Marcus Fowler. Welcome both to CBC.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, these documentaries, I've been watching them. Folks have been hearing them here on Information. Truly, truly amazing creations telling some great stories. Can you tell us more about the Sisler Create program for the post-high school students? Marcus, we'll start with you.
Sure. So the Sisler Create film program is really an intensive sort of deep dive for students to make some short films, make some documentaries, and a big part of it is mentorship from people who are in the industry. We partner very closely with CBC, obviously, like you mentioned, with Bell MTS's 5TV1 channel, but then also a variety of other production companies and, active film sets, that type of thing. Really getting students involved, really getting them working with people in the industry and preparing them either for careers or to go on to further post-secondary.
Now, I want to hear more about the filmmaking program in itself and how it works. Jonathan, what all happens over the course of the program?
Sure. So over the course of the year, we start with basically a 2-month boot camp. So students come to our program with a wide variety of prior experience. And basically what we do is we get everyone up to speed so that they all have the skills necessary to work on projects like the ones they do for CBC, make their own short films and that kind of thing. So we do an intensive skills training boot camp where CBC comes in and mentors our students. And then we kick off our Project POV, where students pitch and produce mini documentaries.
Now, there were 16 mini docs. That's a lot. That's a lot of projects this year that came from this collaboration. We heard a few in the intro there. What are some of the ones that stand out to you? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Well, definitely they're all so unique. There's such a wide range of topics that our students have found and covered. One that stands out for sure is one that just released, that we just heard actually on Big Daddy Taz, who's quite an interesting figure.
I would have never expected that angle of Big Daddy Taz. That's something I had never heard of. So
yeah.
That
so
was
so
brand new.
in that project, the students kind of explored. He's a comedian by night, I guess, and a ghost hunter by day, and he dabbles in mental health advocacy and that kind of thing. And so connecting all those dots was part of the story for those students, and seeing how what makes him tick and how that all comes together and what he does was a really cool project.
Marcus, what about you? What stands out?
They were all great. It's really interesting seeing the students go through the process because, it can be hard to come up with a subject for this and to, go back and forth pitching and finally get one greenlit. One that stands out to me is one of our students was having a hard time thinking of an idea, and it was near Christmas, and somehow the conversation came about Sean Quigley and his version of Little Drummer Boy that came out, I don't know, it was more than 10 years ago, I think. And he connected with him, and Sean was willing to come back and be the subject of sort of where is he now type thing. And it was really cool. And that one launched right before Christmas, so it was timed really nicely. And yeah, it really came together well.
Now, some of the students who came into the program had experience as they entered last September. Others had absolutely no experience. What kind of progress did you see over the school year, Jonathan?
Yeah, we still have a ways to go, but so far we've seen major progress with students who have come in with, an interest in doing this kind of thing. They've seen, film, visual effects and wanted to do it, but not really had the skills. And so we've seen huge progress, especially for students who haven't tried complex software that we teach. And then once we give them the, instruction with the creative tools, they just go so far with it. So we had one student who came from Gordon Bell, and he had never opened up a program called After Effects, which we teach motion graphics in. And, just with a little bit of initiative and support, the stuff that he's been able to make is just incredible. He ended up animating the logo for Festival de Voyageurs this year.
No way.
And it was selected by them, and so he's quite proud of that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And now you're looking for new students in September. Marcus, who would... I don't know how to phrase this because probably a lot of people would do really well, but what kind of students are you looking for?
So I think our program is perfect for students who have an interest in this type of thing, obviously. Students who have taken some classes in high school, maybe that's video production, graphic design, any of that kind of thing. There are some great post-secondary programs in the city, University of Winnipeg, Red River College, that teach similar stuff to what we teach, but they're very expensive. And we think they're great. But what we often tell students is, you know what, before investing all that money in that, why not come try this out for a year, spend a year with us. It's free, which is amazing. And the amount of stuff that they get through this, the kind of training and experience is fantastic. And really see if this is something that you want to pursue further as a career. And then many of our students go on to further post-secondary programs at, again, U of W, Red River College, places like that. But then they know that this is what I really want to do. They've got a fantastic portfolio after this year, helps them get in because of that portfolio, that experience. And then the great thing is, too, that a lot of the stuff that they work on with us, we work so closely with industry. Oftentimes they're producing content for platforms and they get paid for that. So, on top of everything, they get to earn some money throughout the year while they're building their portfolio, gaining experience, deciding if this is what they want to do. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer if this is something that a student wants to explore.
Sounds like a win-win-win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan, where can students go to apply for this program?
So you can log on to sislercreate.com, and there's a tab at the top that says Post High, and you just click there, fill out a pre-registration form. We're accepting applications until March 29th. And from there, we'll have a look. They can submit a portfolio or a reel. We'll review and then reach out to students.
Is there a deadline that people should be aware of?
Yeah, March 29th is the current deadline. So sooner the better. We have a limited number of spaces available in the film cohort. We also offer programming in animation, game design, 3D. Should mention that. But those programs for the time being are full. We had a wait list, but now applications have closed. We still have a little bit of space in film.
Thank you so much for all that information. Also, before you go, Marcus and Jonathan, you're wearing the coolest matching sweaters. You look great. It's got the Sisler Create logo on it. Can you describe what is that logo? I've always wondered. I've seen it a few times.
Yeah, for sure. So this kind of mysterious looking figure here, this is our late principal, George Heshka.
No way.
Yeah, so I'm always really proud to say that he's kind of living on in, these hoodies and, all over our school. And yeah, he was designed with his VR goggles here. And, this was made actually 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible now that so often we're seeing people with VR goggles on, and he was very much ahead of his time.
Very cool. Well, you look great, and the program sounds fantastic. So thank you for joining us this morning on Information Radio.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Marcus Fowler and Jonathan Dick Lyons are instructors with Sisler High School's Sisler Create program. CBC Manitoba and Sisler are wrapping up the second year. And if you want to watch some of those great mini documentaries, you can go to cbc.ca/creatornetworkmb.
Lately I've been trying to fix myself, but there's memories of us all over town. I'm doing what I can to drown you out, but this bottle's got me spiraling down. How we started, how we ended, I'm replaying every detail. Can't forget it, I regret it. You got me falling off the deep end. Sometimes I wish I could go back in time, the weight overkick you out of my life. Wish I had the guts to say goodbye. Everyone could see except for me. I wanna have to always take you. I kissed time, I was yours, but you were never mind. Something about the way you got me high, I can't lie. Honestly, I probably would still take you back if I could go back in time. Sometimes I wish I could go back in time, the weight over kick you out my life. Wish I had the guts to
From Tayen Denega Mohawk territory, that was Noelle with Back in Time. You'll find that on her new EP, Chaos. A warning that the contents of this next story may be triggering or disturbing for some people. RCMP confirms that it is investigating hazing allegations involving a hockey team in Manitoba. The Prairie Spirit School Division says it is aware of the allegations and an internal investigation has occurred. It is not clear what the nature of the hazing allegations are. Hazing used to be commonplace, and while our society has worked to stamp it out, it's still happening. Laura Robinson is an investigative sports journalist who wrote the book Crossing the Line. It's about abuse in sports. Good morning, Laura. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
How common is hazing in the 21st century?
Well, in the 21st century, I think, as we rolled into it, it was very common. But because of some high-profile cases, various hockey associations and other sport organizations, but, we found it a lot in hockey and in football, banned it. But that often led to it going underground because the reason for hazing, which is sort of to keep a dark secret, the team bonding is through secrecy. That really, the culture that made that possible, that didn't change. So we still, I think, do find hazing, but as I said, it's gone underground.
Now, folks might be familiar with the word hazing and the idea of it, but not know what it looks like. How would you describe hazing as an act?
Well, it's an initiation. It's usually done in secret, often in a locker room or in a garage or somewhere where other people can't get in. And it almost always involves copious amounts of alcohol. So that acts as an external disinhibitor. And in both ways, you get the people doing the terrible acts. So these are little games that the new players, the rookies, are supposed to play. They're not games. They're usually sexual assaults. They're degrading, violent, and humiliating. But people use a lot of alcohol, first of all, to disable their victims, but also to be able to say, I was drunk, because they know what they're going to do is not acceptable, and it's often criminal.
What would you say the impact of hazing is?
Well, like any style of abuse or harassment, it's lifelong, especially when it comes from people you trusted. These are people who the victim looked up to. They probably spent years wanting to make this team and then finally made it. But making the team wasn't enough. They still had to, keep this deep, dark secret with the team. And that secret inside themselves, they carry it forever.
How hard is it for victims of hazing to come forward?
I think it's still difficult because the culture of sport is so, I think Irving Goffman would call it a total institution. So it's almost like there's a dome over it. And then because teams travel, it's a mobile total institution. So no matter where this person is, they're part of the team, and the team is watching them. So they know that they're going to be seen as a traitor if they disclose what happened in hazing. And as I said earlier, they've wanted to make this team for so long, and this team has turned out to be the abusers of their life. It's also very difficult for them to even come to terms with what has happened.
Now, this story is based around a hockey team in Manitoba. Does hazing happen primarily in hockey, or does it extend to other sports?
I think it extends, as I said, we'll find it in football teams. You find it in fraternities. And unfortunately, even some women's teams have decided that equality means being as much of a jerk as a guy. Instead of bringing their culture, which I think I was a female athlete for many, many years, it was to me, it was inclusive. We were competitors with each other, but we still really liked each other and we were friends. Instead of bringing that culture to sport, it looks like sometimes women's sport has adopted this male culture. It's very toxic, obviously. So outside of hockey and football and fraternities, I do know of a few varsity teams, volleyball and basketball, where hazings have occurred too, but you'll find it more frequently in aggressive male sports where violence is seen as a form of masculinity.
We have just about a minute left here, Laura. For any parents who are listening and may be concerned about this, how can they talk to their kids about hazing?
Well, I think they have to really, first of all, do some research on it so they know that they're probably going to talk about sexual abuse by a teammate. And they have to understand that that's a criminal offense. So no one wants their child to be subjected to a crime. So the parents become educated themselves on what it is. And then there really needs to be an environment in the household that is about honesty and about unconditional love. So a child feels that they can go to the parent. And one big problem for children, young people, is that many families turn themselves inside out in order to accommodate the cost and the schedule of sports these days. So the child does not want to disappoint the parents after they've sacrificed so much.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Laura Robinson is an investigative sports journalist. An RCMP spokesperson said the incident was alleged to have happened in Winnipeg and was reported to Pembina Valley RCMP on February 20th in Carman. The statement from Prairie Spirit School Division says, quote, "For the sake of privacy for the students and families involved, the school divisions will not be commenting on any students' potential involvement. We continue to work as education partners in order to best support the students and families involved," end quote. For more on this story, you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba. It's time now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the Muslim Holy Month is taking on a new meaning for many this year. Prayers at Winnipeg's Grand Mosque last night were held as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza has left many with heavy hearts heading into Ramadan. We'll hear more. And firefighters in Winnipeg say they need more staff to investigate a wave of fires that hit the inner city this year. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis says crews have fought almost 500 fires since January. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells with a look at your news headlines. Coming up on Information Radio, we'll continue a conversation that we had yesterday on ageism. Have you ever faced ageism? Coming up, we'll learn just how prevalent ageism is in our society and how it plays out and where it's most felt. And the answers just may surprise you. That and so much more coming up still on Information Radio this morning. I'm Chloe Friesen in for Marcy Marcusa. So happy to be here. Stick around. World Report is next.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Freedom of movement is a diminishing resource.
The dancer and performance artist Bill T. Jones has a lot to say about how movement can help you get over loss. In the 80s, at the height of the AIDS crisis, Bill interviewed terminally ill patients and incorporated their movements into dance. He'll be here to tell you why. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Our memories are such a huge part of who we are as people. But the human memory is also fickle, and what we remember happening may not be what actually occurred. What new research shows about how memory works, coming up on The Current with Matt Galloway in half an hour.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Prime Minister of Haiti has resigned.
Haïti besoin la paix. Haïti besoin stabilité.
In a video announcing his decision, Ariel Henry called on Haitians to remain calm. Rival gangs joined forces to oust Henry. They set police stations on fire, stormed prisons, and laid siege to the capital's international airport. Canada says it will not send troops to Haiti to help restore law and order, but it is promising to contribute $80.5 million to a mission led by Kenya. As Kate McKenna reports, that mission has faced delays.
The Kenyan government says it's in the pre-deployment phase of sending up to 1,000 police officers to Haiti, fulfilling an obligation the country made to lead the UN-authorized mission last October. The plan hit a snag in January when a Kenyan High Court judge ruled it was unconstitutional, in part because Haiti and Kenya didn't have a reciprocal agreement in place detailing the work Kenyan forces would do in Haiti. The court decision essentially put the mission on hold. That changed 2 weeks ago when the Haitian Prime Minister traveled to Kenya to sign a bilateral agreement. Kither Kindiki is Kenya's Cabinet Secretary of Interior and National Administration.
There was a small court matter. That small matter has been resolved because the court said we needed to have a reciprocal agreement with Haiti. That reciprocal agreement has already been signed about a week ago. So we are now in the pre-deployment stage.
He did not give an exact date for when police will be deployed. The country's government has appealed the court ruling, but a senior official told the New York Times in February that Kenya's government won't wait for a court of appeal ruling before sending its forces to Haiti. Several other countries, including Spain, Senegal, and Jamaica, have also volunteered to send officers to help. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The charity ship Open Arms is now sailing towards Gaza. After a long delay at port in Cyprus, the vessel is bringing almost 200 tons of food aid to the Palestinian territory. Israel has been repeatedly accused of not doing enough to help aid reach the people of Gaza. Here is EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
The situation on the ground is more dramatic than ever, and it has reached a tipping point. We have all seen the reports of children dying of starvation. This cannot be.
The Open Arms is the first ship to set sail along a new international sea corridor. The route is designed to get food and supplies into Gaza. The voyage from Cyprus to Gaza is expected to take about 50 hours. In India, protests are happening across the country over a controversial law. Demonstrators say the Citizen Amendment Act discriminates against Muslims. The law gives Indian citizenship to minority religious groups who have fled Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. But Muslims are excluded. Narendra Modi's government says it is supposed to help those facing persecution, but this opposition Congress leader says it is political and anti-Muslim.
This is the first time that into the principle of citizenship, you are finding a law being brought in that actually discriminates by excluding people of one particular faith.
Violent protests spread across India when the law was passed in 2019. The government delayed its implementation. Opposition leaders say Modi's ruling Hindu Nationalist Party will divide the country with this legislation. India is expected to hold a general election by May. Taiwan's top security official says China is trying to normalize its military drills near the island. Taiwanese officials say the Joint Combat Readiness Patrols are meant to pressure the self-governed island. They say Beijing will likely continue with the drills, and Taiwan is preparing for the inauguration of its new president. Freelance reporter Laura Westbrook has more from Hong Kong.
Speaking to lawmakers in Taiwan's legislature, the country's national security official, Tsai Ming-yen, says China is trying to normalize military drills near Taiwan. He says Taipei remained in close discussions with international allies, but did not see any signs of war breaking out in the Taiwan Strait yet. Beijing has long claimed Taiwan and repeatedly rehearsed encircling the self-ruled island with fighter jets and Navy ships. Wei Ting-yen, an assistant professor at Franklin and Marshall College in Pennsylvania, says these gray zone tactics are becoming more frequent. Military speak for moves that fall between war and peace.
Since Pelosi's visit
in 2022, we have been seeing China started using more military drills to expand its power over the Taiwan Strait. All of this represent like a new form of China to increase its pressure on Taiwan.
Chasing Ye is the director of the think tank US Taiwan Watch.
And this is a tactic that China is using to create a mood of intimidation and coercion in Taiwan to try to sway public opinion and to sway elections to its favor.
Tsai warned Beijing would maintain its military and political tactics while also offering economic incentives to those who help further its goal of unifying with the island. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump are hoping to cement their party's presidential nominations tonight. 4 states are holding primaries: Washington, Mississippi, Hawaii, and Georgia. The CBC's Richard Madden is following that from Washington. And Richard, we are not expecting any surprises tonight, but these primaries are still significant. What can you tell us?
Yeah, there's not a lot of drama, but they make the Biden-Trump rematch official. Both leaders are expected to win these primary contests tonight to secure enough delegates to become their party's presidential nominees. Now, President Joe Biden is already on a nationwide campaign blitz fresh off his State of the Union address. He's trying to draw a sharp contrast between himself and former President Donald Trump by vowing to protect social programs while blasting Trump's handling of the pandemic. Take a listen.
My predecessor failed the most basic of any duty a president owes the American people, a duty to care. I believe that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to uphold the duty to care.
Now, Trump is targeting Biden's handling of the economy, his immigration policies, and he even mocked Biden's lifelong stutter at a rally last weekend.
Measures I'm going to bring the country together.
Now, both candidates are gearing up for a long, bitter campaign. And later this week, Biden has stops planned in key swing states, Wisconsin and Michigan. Trump is set to hold a rally in Ohio.
So we've seen some clues about what Joe Biden's campaign promises might be. He recently unveiled his budget. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Biden unveiled his proposed $7 trillion budget, which calls for tax hikes on corporations and the super wealthy, with new spending to improve social programs here at home to emergency aid for foreign allies like Ukraine. Now, this has little to no chance of passing through Congress, especially in election year, but this is considered Biden's campaign blueprint, drawing more policy contrast between himself and his rival.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. The largest newspaper company in Atlantic Canada is filing for creditor protection. The Saltwire Network owns almost all of the newspapers in Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. As Kayla Hounsell explains, if Saltwire folds, it could have a gaping hole, leave that hole in the journalism landscape.
They go back a couple of hundred years. And when I was growing up, they were the paper of record in Nova Scotia.
Stephen Kimber has been a journalist in Atlantic Canada for more than 50 years. He's talking about Halifax's Chronicle Herald, the oldest independent newspaper in Canada. But this is not just about that one paper. In 2017, its owners went on a shopping spree, buying up 24 newspapers in Atlantic Canada. Now, the private equity fund that financed those acquisitions says Saltwire owes it more than $32 million. Court documents suggest Saltwire owes millions more in unpaid taxes, that it mismanaged the business and used employees' pension funds for operations. Kimber believes it will ultimately result in the loss of all those newspapers.
There are all sorts of things that happen at city councils and school boards. Those are things that matter to people. And if they're not being reported because there's nobody out there to report them, then what happens? Is it going to be done behind closed doors?
The company also employs hundreds of people. Their union president, Willie Palov.
So we're all just kind of taking a wait-and-see approach right now.
An emergency court hearing has been set for Wednesday. Saltwire says filing for creditor protection is a strategic move to ensure the company's future. And for now, it says whether to mailboxes or inboxes, the papers will still be delivered. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on your CBC Listen app. And hello to our viewers on our CBC Manitoba live stream. And hello to the crew behind the glass. Brad Lillies is taking care of that live stream on YouTube. Abby Adiemi is our show technician today. And Dylan Longhurst is filling in for Corey Funk as show director. Coming up on Information Radio, have you ever faced ageism? Coming up, we'll learn just how prevalent ageism is in our society, how it plays out, and where it's most felt. The answers may surprise you. That's coming up next here on Information Radio. First, we have news headlines with Heather Wells. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Hi, Chloe. Well, RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing involving a Manitoba hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after the allegations were brought to its attention. The division would not provide further details. An RCMP spokesperson says the incident allegedly took place in Winnipeg and was reported to police in Carman on February 20th. It is being called a public health emergency. The overpopulation of dogs in Manitoba. 45 animal welfare groups from across the country have sent a letter to the province asking for $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs. We'll hear more in our next news at 8:30.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells with a look at your news headlines. She will be back with more in about half an hour's time. Abby Adiemi joins me now for a look at the forecast.
Still enjoying the clear skies.
Still enjoying the clear skies. Yeah, I can see some blue just peeking through the curtains there behind you. And it looks lovely. Yesterday, I think we were spoiled.
Yeah, we were spoiled. We're still going to get that golden sunrise and golden sunset.
Okay.
We're still going to get it.
All right.
But currently, we are at 0, a bit chill on the chilly side. Throughout the day, we can expect increasing cloudiness later as the day progresses. We're aiming for a high of 4. Moving to west, the Brandon area is currently clear. Today, the Western region is expecting sunny skies, then a transition into a mix of sun and clouds later. And for folks in Brandon, you will be seeing a high of 2 degrees. Up in the northern part of the province, Thompson is currently at -4 degrees, heading to a high of 0. Churchill is at -1. Gimli is at -3. Steinbach is at -3. And Morris is going to be seeing a high of 6 degrees today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Abby. Abby Adiemi with a look at your forecast. And if you're wondering why you're hearing my voice instead of Marcy Marcusa's, that's because Marcy, as well with Corey Funk, they're going to be exploring St. Laurent a little bit today. That's part of CBC Manitoba's Communities in Focus. And then tomorrow morning, Information Radio will be broadcasted live from the community. And filling in for Corey Funk this morning is Dylan Longhorse. I almost called
works.
you Dylan Longhorse.
I'll take it.
Dylan Longhurst joins us now in studio for a look at the commute. Apologies, Dylan.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, it's been a pretty steady day in traffic. Not a lot of big issues or problem spots keeping people moving slow today. But we did get a call about Marion and Archibald, where north and southbound traffic on Archibald Street there are down to 1 lane in both directions. That's naturally just causing some delays, especially when people want to turn left at that intersection, as there's not really a great way around for north or southbound traffic. So that's not a huge problem spot, but it might be cropping up throughout the day if that is on your regular commute. We also did just hear about a train that crossed Marion at that same intersection. It is gone now, but did cause some delays. Traffic might just be a little bit slower on Marion for the time being, hopefully clearing up relatively soon. Anything you see out there on your commute, of course, you can always give us a call at 204-788-3093.
The time is just about 8:15. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, the next U.S. president will become the oldest person ever sworn into the White House. Many voters there have voiced concerns around age and competence. That sparks that has sparked a wider discussion around ageism. 72-year-old elder Barbara Nepanak from Pine Creek Ojibwe First Nation weighed in on ageism with Marcy Marcusa yesterday.
It's just a number. When people realize I'm 72 and they say, you don't look like 72. So I don't know what 72 is supposed to look like. That's the thing,
Yeah, that's true.
What am I supposed to look like tomorrow? It's something that I deal with all the time. And also to be alone is another thing. People judge you. Oh, you poor thing. No, I'm not a poor thing. I still have my faculties together. I can still get out and do things. I always think that as long as I have energy and as long as I have my marbles together, I'll still go out there and do what I have to do. It's my responsibility as an Anishinaabe. We have to take that leadership role.
That was Barbara Nepanak weighing in on ageism yesterday on Information Radio. Laura Tamblin-Watts says she knows all too well about ageism in Canada. She's the president and CEO of CanAge, a national seniors advocacy organization. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Good morning.
Laura, what's your reaction to what we just heard Barb Nepanak say about ageism?
Well, I love to hear what she's personally committed to. What we know, of course, is that more than 50% of all Canadians are profoundly ageist. That's from Stats Canada reports, and that's backed up as well by the global statistics. In fact, ageism is the single most prevalent form of discrimination in the world.
What about the discussion around ageism that's circulating around the competency of Trump and Biden? Have you heard bits of that conversation?
It's everywhere. And when we're thinking about the mental capacity issues, I think a lot of people have questions about Trump himself, but it's really around Joe Biden. We're seeing also a couple of different things. One, Joe Biden is from an older generation. Trump is a boomer. And so we're seeing a bit of a culture clash between these things as well. But fundamentally, no one's really asking the core questions about their own ability to lead. What they're doing is going back to questions about their age.
Now, you mentioned 56% of Canadians are profoundly affected by ageism. Does it look different for women compared to men?
It absolutely does. I don't know any woman who can't say that she has been thinking about what age means to her from an early age, often 20s and even 30 years old. People are talking about it. And certainly you're protected by privilege. And so if we're looking at who experiences ageism the least, it tends to be wealthy, urban, white, straight men. And the farther you go away from that, the more likely ageism is going to affect you negatively.
Are there any industries that are most impacted by ageism?
It's funny when we think about technology, it may not necessarily go immediately to your mind, but in fact, Silicon Valley is one of the most profoundly ageist places there is. Really over the hill, 37 for even men and younger for women. So really ageism can affect you at any age. As we are living longer and living more healthily, mostly, however, we need to challenge what it is that we're pushing against. We need people to stay in the workforce longer. We need people to be active and engaged. And as our generations shift, we need people to take care of other people as well. So this is something that we are really going to have to confront.
37 years old in Silicon Valley.
And the highest number of men getting facial surgeries to look younger, because 37 is considered too much. And listen, this happens in Canada too, with the algorithms playing a huge role in things like recruiting. It's not only just tech companies that get it, but in fact, the federal government a couple of years ago got in some hot water because they are advertising through an algorithm that only showed up to people under 40.
Is there any places that we see ageism that might surprise us?
We do see it not just in business and not just in stores, but we see it kind of prevalent in all aspects of life. And this is where you have younger people who are managers feeling uncomfortable sometimes managing people who are older than them. It's not really necessarily because they think terrible things about older adults, but we just don't know how to work across generations. So if you go to the Starbucks and you see a younger person managing an older barista, you can be sure that there's some ageism at play there just as much as there is in a technology company.
What impact does ageism have on people in their personal lives?
It's actually horrible. And this isn't one of those things that we can just laugh about and push off to the side. It is the last most accepted form of discrimination. And if you don't believe me, go buy a birthday card and have a look at the terrible things that we say, often at 30 and 40 years old, let alone at 70, 80, or 90 years old. And then imagine switching that to anything else. Imagine it was about race or about gender or about some other type of intersectionality. And then you realize how prevalent ageism is. But actually, ageism makes you sick. Ageism can make you weak. Any time that you have discrimination layered upon you, it actually has a weight that goes into your body as well as into your your spirit.
Considering there's been a lot of work put into anti-discrimination laws here in Canada, prevalent, why does it still exist?
I have the theory that it is because we've never lived this long that we kind of don't know what to do with it. And this is when we're thinking about issues of midlife. There's a bunch of theories that say, midlife is a crisis because it used to be the end of life. And we don't quite know what to do with the second part of life. Now, we're not talking about the next 20 years. We're talking about the second 50 years. So we're looking at 50 to 100 now as an entirely different part of life. And we've just never biologically lived that long. But I also think that in some ways, our roles have changed. So knowledge keeping was a big part of being an older person in a community. And now in so many ways, Google is our grandmother. And so we can look up a lot of the information that tells you which berries to eat or which mushrooms to avoid. And so we are changing what the traditional concepts of being older is in community. And we're saying, no, actually, I'm vital, I'm active, I'm well, I'm engaged. And then if I become sick, I want to be treated as a person who's sick, not treated as just a person who's old.
What can be done to fight ageism?
Well, first we need to call it out in the same way that we do with other forms of discrimination. So if you are in a workplace or in a community and you're thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, step one, check to see if age is in that statement. It actually probably is. And then ask, what have we done about that, in the same way that we may have done initiatives for other forms of discrimination. And I bet there haven't been any. That's the next piece. Then have a good solid look and see, audit your organization, your company, or even your own mentality around what held beliefs you have, what makes you shudder or cringe. Then really challenge yourself against that in other areas as well. Strip out ageist language. So if you're advertising for a job, don't just say sort of young and fresh and so on. How many years experience in a particular role are you looking for? Advertise for 2 to 5 years of experience. And we at CanAge are doing a lot of work with companies. On the other hand, don't ignore the fact that capacity challenges can happen. They can happen because of mental health or concussion, and they can happen because of dementia as well. Not everybody who is working is perfectly well, and that's true for all kinds of illnesses. So we don't need to turn a blind eye to that reality as well.
Laura, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Laura Tamblyn-Watts is the president and CEO of CanAge, a national seniors advocacy organization.
Communities in Focus is back. CBC wants to get to know the communities we serve a little better, and this time we're coming to St. Laurent. I'm Emily Brass. Join me March 11th to 15th and share the stories of your community. Let's find out what St. Laurent is all about. Communities in Focus. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
The time is 8:24. You're listening to Information Radio. I'm Chloe Friesen filling in for Marcy Marcusa, and Marcy's going to join us later on, just before the show ends, before she and show director Corey Funk hit the road, actually, to visit St. Laurent, where Emily Brass is running the Community News Bureau down there. So they'll be broadcasting live from St. Laurent tomorrow. The Winnipeg Folk Festival has announced their 2024 lineup. American rock band Band of Horses is one of the performers. They're coming from their home of Seattle, Washington. Here they are now with No One's Gonna Love You. Band of Horses with their song No One's Gonna Love You. They're coming to the Winnipeg Folk Festival this summer. That lineup was announced over the weekend. Joining me in studio now is a familiar voice, the voice you expect to hear here on Information Radio, Marcy Marcusa.
Good morning, Chloe. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Big shoes to fill, but I've been having a great time.
Good. Morning's the best time of day.
Best time of day. You're heading on the road today.
Yeah, I know you've been mentioning this a bit, so thanks for letting me pop in and speak, to it for a moment. I should be saying hello, Chloe, and practicing my michif. See this little book I'm holding up?
Yes.
Where's the camera?
It's right
You got
up
that there?
over there.
Yeah, over there? I don't know. We're probably not even getting the shot. I'm holding a book of michif French because we're going to St. Laurent. St. Laurent is a community of about 1,500 people on the eastern shore of Lake Manitoba, about 70 kilometers from Winnipeg northwest. And I have been to the community before, but honestly for news events. So the 2011 flood, I made way with the producer at the time, Janice Moeller, around the lake twice to tell those stories. This is going to be more fun. And I think a lot more interesting as well, because this is part of, as you've been maybe mentioning, Communities in Focus, a team of reporters, producers, really head to a community and stay there for a week. So we're in and out with our show tomorrow live, but Emily Brass, our reporter on the ground, is going to be there for the whole week, gathering different stories, all about life in St. Laurent. Now, one of the things about it is it's the largest Métis community in North America. And it also is home to a language that is not heard all that much. It's one of the dying languages, which is Michif. Takes me back to the book I'm holding, Michif French. So one of the stories I'm excited about is when I hit the road today, the first stop I'm making is to visit 3 of the elders that wrote this book. This is a Michif dictionary. They got together, they grew up speaking it, and they said, we want to preserve the language, so it took them years to put this together.
Wow.
So we're going to hear from them tomorrow. That and a whole bunch of other stories as we descend on St. Laurent, Manitoba. So really looking forward to it. I know I'm just trying to get in the plug before news here, so I'll just mention that tomorrow's show is at the MTT Petro-Canada on Highway 6 in St. Laurent, and that is because they've got a diner in the back.
Yes.
Pretty groovy, good food. Come join us there. If you're in the area and listening this morning, we would love to see you for our live show. And then I know we have some community events and coverage. And if you have a story to share, please call the listener line or write to us, 788-3205. And thank you for getting up early and filling in for me.
Of course. Safe travels to you and Corey as you head to St. Laurent.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really mild out there, so it'll be good.
Lovely. It's Marcy Marcusa. Your CBC Local News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. Brilliant sunshine out there right now. It is 0 in downtown Winnipeg. We're not warming up as much as we did yesterday. A high today of 4 with a risk of freezing drizzle later today as clouds start to move in. Well, as Ramadan begins, the war in Gaza weighs heavily on many Muslims in Winnipeg. Prayers at Winnipeg's Grand Mosque last night. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has left many with heavy hearts as Ramadan begins. The region is running out of food, and people and children are starving. Hakeem Ghulam at the Manitoba Islamic Association says one of the lessons of Ramadan is generosity, something he says needs to be practiced, especially right now.
If you see this kind of thing, you become emotional. You're definitely, your heart cries. You want to help them, you want to serve them, you want to assist them.
Well, after days of delay, a charity ship laden with food for Gaza has left port in Cyprus. That vessel towing a barge with 200 tons of food for Palestinians. The UN estimates a quarter of the population in Gaza is on the brink of starvation. RCMP are investigating an alleged hazing involving a Manitoba hockey team. The Prairie Spirit School Division confirms to CBC an internal investigation took place after the allegations were brought to its attention. The division would not provide further details. An RCMP spokesperson says the incident allegedly took place in Winnipeg and was reported to police in Carman on February 20th. Laura Robinson is a sports journalist who has written about abuse in hockey, and she says generally hazing used to be very common, but it's gone underground in recent years.
All teams have banned it at every level, but I do believe that it still can take place in secret and underground. So we don't really know how common it is now because all sports organizations have banned hazing.
Robinson says hazing is a form of gang abuse and can turn hockey dreams into nightmares. Firefighters in Winnipeg say they need more staff to investigate a wave of fires that's hit the inner city this year. United Firefighters of Winnipeg President Tom Billis says crews have fought almost 500 fires since January. He says there's been a significant increase in the number of vacant building fires this year compared to last year.
It is very hard to maintain the integrity of a scene. That's why you need these trained professionals to come in as the fire is going and taking pictures and doing their due diligence. So, yeah, it makes all the difference. We really need to bolster that branch.
Billis says a special sniffer dog is being trained in Virginia, and the city says that dog should be on the job by late spring. Billis recommends the city quadruple its fire investigations branch just to keep up with demand. It is being called a public health emergency, the overpopulation of dogs in Manitoba. 45 animal welfare groups from across the country have sent a letter to the province. They ask the province for $2.5 million a year for spay and neuter programs accessible to urban, rural, and remote communities. Karina Grawinski is the founding director of Feed the Fur Babies Canada.
We're out of resources. We're out of funding. We have no space. We have nowhere left to put animals. So everyone is basically at their breaking point.
Grawinski says the province has not yet responded to the letter. CBC News has reached out for comment. American singer-songwriter Eric Carmen has died. Carmen rose to fame in the 1970s as a member of the pop group The Raspberries. He then went solo with that hit song, Hungry Eyes, which was featured in the 1987 movie classic Dirty Dancing. Other Eric Carmen hits include All By Myself and Never Gonna Fall in Love Again. Carmen's wife says he died over the weekend. He was 74. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Those songs just transcend generations.
They really do, right?
They've lasted such a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll continue to be played. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Heather Wells with a look at your news. Dylan Longhurst joins us now in studio for one last look at the commute. Good morning.
Good morning. The first thing I said when I hopped in traffic today was that the lights at Provencher and Des Muron were flashing red to treat as an always stop. Well, they got fixed midway through the show. And now they're back to flashing all red. So traveling in the intersection of Provencher and Des Murons, treat it as an always stop. Use caution when entering the intersection there. As well, this just in, southbound Waverly at Hennessy. There's been a collision blocking all southbound travel. So traffic has to find an alternate route. The caller who let us know said they're rerouting currently through Lindenwoods. So southbound Waverly traffic, you're going to run into some delays today. Thank you so much for listening and calling in and all the great tips we've got today.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Dylan. It's pretty different for our schedules. Abby Adiemi in for one last look at the weather.
Clear skies in the city. We're heading for a high of 4. Brandon is heading for a high of 2. Thompson is heading for a high of 0. Churchill will see a high of -3. Dauphin is currently at -3. Gimli would see a high of 4. Steinbach will see a high of 6. And then Morris will see a high of 6.
Lovely spending the morning with you, Abby. Thank you. It's Abby Adiemi with a look at your weather. Abby was our technical director here on the show. Dylan Longhurst filling in for Corey Funk as show director. Brad Lilly's running that YouTube live stream, CBC Manitoba on YouTube. I'm Chloe Friesen in today for Marcy Marcouse. It's been an absolute pleasure joining you this morning. The Current is next.